the ice and fire demon god of Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151, Using Basilisk Fangs to Poison the Dagger. Lin thought for a moment and said, yes, wandless spellcasting is indeed difficult for ordinary young wizards. Let me sort out my notes on wandless spellcasting when I go back and send them to you by owl. You know, even the auras in the aura office of the Ministry of Magic can cast spells silently, and the number of those who can cast spells without a wand can be counted on one hand. In this case, Lin wanted the Weir Light Winds to learn wandless spellcasting in one step, which was indeed a bit too difficult for them. Okay, then we'll wait for your good news. Hearing Lin's words, Fred and George's eyes lit up, and they said in unison. At this moment, Irina couldn't help but speak. By the way, you just said you had something to tell us. I wonder what it is. Fred coughed lightly and put on a serious look. Ahem. Let's get back to the topic. In fact, we are here to invite you and Lin to visit the burrow. Oh, by the way, Irina, it was our younger brother Ronnie who invited you, but when he saw that the two of us were coming, he just asked us to invite him together. George echoed, Mom plans to entertain you in August. I wonder if you will have time then. Lin thought for a while and said, I may go to France during the summer vacation. I'm not sure when I can come back. I can only promise that I will be free the week before school starts. Irina said, it's about the same for me. I have an appointment with Hagrid in August. We are going to visit an old man together. The time of return is uncertain, but I will definitely be back a week before school starts. Hearing this, the Weir Light Winds were slightly stunned. Fred smiled and said, it seems that you have a very rich summer vacation. George also smiled and said, then let's talk to Mom and see if she has any other plans at the end of August. If possible, see you at the burrow then. See you at the burrow, Lin and Irina said. Not long after Fred and George left, the Hogwarts Express slowly pulled into King's Cross Station, and Lin and Irina also said goodbye on the platform. Irina rushed to her parents who came to pick her up, while Lin found the house elf Gale and returned to Rowell Castle through apparition. Mom, I'm back. Seeing Rowena sitting on the sofa watching the TV she brought back from the Muggle world as usual, Lin greeted her. Rowena hurried over and looked at Lin with some concern. Lin, I heard about the Slytherin Chamber of Secrets from the Daily Prophet. Are you not hurt? If Quirrell's death last year was just a small matter, and Voldemort's residual soul was suppressed by the Ministry of Magic, then the news about the Slytherin Chamber of Secrets and the Basilisk this year could not be concealed from the public. As early as the third day after the Basilisk was killed, the Daily Prophet published the news that the Slytherin Chamber of Secrets was discovered and the Basilisk was killed, which made most British wizards know the existence of the Basilisk. And at the year-end party yesterday, Dumbledore personally revealed the name of the hero who killed the Basilisk, which made the names of Lin and Irina appear in the Daily Prophet early this morning, unknown to British wizards. As a traditional British wizard, Rowena naturally has the habit of subscribing to the Daily Prophet, and the heroic deeds of Lin and Irina joining forces to kill the Basilisk also made her know. However, Rowena did not care about Lin's reputation for killing the Basilisk. She only cared about whether her children were harmed by it. Seeing her mother's worried eyes, Lin couldn't help feeling a little guilty. Recalling the scene when he had no intention of destroying his own body and still wanted to extract the magic power of the Philosopher's Stone to attack the Basilisk, he could not help but feel guilty towards Rowena. His mother worried about him all day and all night, but he did not cherish his body. Although even if he was given another choice, he would still do it. After all, he also could not stand Irina being tortured by Riddle with the Cruciatus curse. What can happen to me? Relax, I eat delicious food every day and I'm in great health, Lin En said to Rowena with a smile. Rowena gently waved her wand, and a magic power scanned Lin En from head to toe. After confirming that Lin En was indeed very healthy, she was relieved. After Lin En cooperated with Rowena to complete the examination, she said, Mom, is the dagger I made for you last time still there? I plan to activate the alchemical array with the attribute of poisoning and use the fangs of the basilisk I killed. Rowena took out the purple black dagger with a smile and handed it to Lin En. Seeing her child giving back to her with her own eyes, Rowena felt very relieved. This purple black dagger was an alchemical weapon that Lin En made for her during the summer vacation after the end of her first grade. It was engraved with many alchemical arrays, and the alchemical array of poisoning attribute was one of them. However, this purple black dagger had never absorbed any toxins, so the alchemical array of poisoning attribute could not take effect for the time being. Lin En took the purple black dagger back to his room. With a wave of his right hand, a fang flashing with a chilling black light appeared in his hand. The method of activating the alchemical array of poisoning attribute was very simple. Lin En only needed to drip the venom of the snake monster's fang on the purple black dagger. Lin En's right hand holding the fang exerted a little force, and a stream of magic burst out from his hand. Under the stimulation of the magic, 4 or 5 drops of black liquid dripped from the tip of the snake monster's fang and fell on the purple black dagger. The next moment, the few drops of black liquid sank into the purple black dagger and disappeared, while the alchemical array representing the poisoning attribute flashed with a strange light. In fact, this poisoning alchemical array is a very common alchemical array on alchemical weapons. For example, the Gryffindor Holy Sword has an identical poisoning alchemical array hidden inside. Otherwise, the Gryffindor Holy Sword would not be able to absorb the poison in the fangs of the basilisk, and thus have the ability to destroy the Horcrux. After activating the poisoning alchemical array, Lin En could see a black light flashing from time to time at the edge of the dagger. If this purple black dagger stabbed other wizards, then unless the wizard could get the phoenix tears within 3 minutes, he would die of the poison. However, phoenix tears are not something that can be found everywhere, let alone found within 3 minutes of being stabbed by the purple black dagger. Therefore, as long as a wizard is stabbed by this purple black dagger, he will basically be sentenced to death on the spot. Chapter 152. Ignore the risks and continue the installation. With this purple black dagger, coupled with Rowena's own impressive magic power, Rowena's safety can be said to be extremely guaranteed. As for whether Rowena would be accidentally injured by her own purple black dagger, Lin En was not worried. With the blessing of the alchemical array, Rowena had already obtained the so-called master recognition of this purple black dagger in the alchemical lore. In other words, if Rowena stabbed herself with this purple black dagger, all the alchemical arrays on the purple black dagger would be invalid the moment Rowena took action, including the poisoning attribute alchemical array. After returning the purple black dagger to Rowena, Lin En began his holiday life. According to the letter Green sent to him through an owl, Lin En needed to go to France at the end of July, and Green had already applied for the cross-border door key to France for Lin En through his own channels. With the experience of Lin En being hijacked on a plane last time, Green would never dare to let Lin En take the Muggle's transportation again. After confirming that he would meet his teacher at the end of July, Lin En was no longer in a hurry to use the materials from the basilisk to refine new alchemical weapons. You know, there is only one basilisk in the magic world for thousands of years, and every gram of material from the basilisk can be said to be worth a fortune. Lin En didn't want to waste such precious alchemical materials because of his mistakes. Therefore, Lin En only planned to design the alchemical blueprint first, and then after Green asked about it and gave some modification suggestions, he would start the real alchemy. Designing the alchemical blueprint was naturally easy for Lin En, and after the alchemical blueprint was designed, he had nothing to do. Just when Lin En was about to enjoy his vacation, he suddenly thought of a question. Wait, as one of the 28 pureblood families of the Holy God, the Malfoy family has so many black magic items, so how could the Roll family, which is also one of the 28 pureblood families of the Holy God and even more ancient, not have some items related to black magic? Lin En thought suddenly. You know, the status of the Rowell family among the Holy 28 pure-blooded families is not lower than that of the Malfoy family. As such an ancient family, how could the Rowell family not have anything passed down from their ancestors? Exclamation mark. Perhaps, I can find information related to the fiendish fire curse in the books, passed down by the Rowell family. Lin thought so. Lin immediately went to the 4th floor of the Rowell castle. It has been mentioned before that the 4th floor of the Rowell castle is mainly filled with some magic books and other collections, which is equivalent to a small library and collection room. In other words, if the Rowell family really has information related to black magic, then these materials must be here. Lin looked at the glass cabinets containing collections and the bookshelves filled with various books around him, and Lin couldn't help but smile. Lin did not hesitate to pass by a large pile of collections and books on the periphery, and walk towards the depths, until he was stopped by a red cloth. This is a relatively new red cloth, similar to the red strips, used to separate tourists and maintain order, that Lin En had seen in the scenic area in his previous life. On this red cloth, the word taboo was written in black ink. Judging from the newness of this red cloth, Lin En guessed that this red cloth was placed here by his father Hendry when he was alive. Considering Hendry's identity and position, it can be guessed that behind this red cloth with the word taboo are probably some black magic books and black magic items. As for the books and collections in the area that Lin En just walked through, they are basically cultural relics such as vases, as well as safe and harmless books such as family trees. Ignore the risk, and continue to install. Lin En picked up the red cloth, and drilled under it. Just as Lin En had just thought, the 3 words black magic were marked on the bookshelves behind the red cloth. On the 3 shelves at the deepest, the words extremely dangerous were written on the side of the shelves with the blood of unknown creatures. According to the danger level of the fiery curse, if there is really information related to the fiery curse in the black magic collection of the Rowell family, it is likely to be on these 3 shelves. As we all know, the more dangerous the book is, the less likely it is to be published in the magic world. Therefore, there are almost no complete books on these 3 bookshelves, but rolls of withered parchment that record various black magic knowledge. Lin En took out these parchments one by one, carefully looking for the knowledge he wanted. Soon, an afternoon passed, and Lin En got the answer he wanted. On a roll of tattered parchment, the method of casting the fiery curse and its counter curse was recorded in detail, and on the right side of this information, there was a picture of countless wizards being burned to death by red and black flames. In addition, Lin En could also see many scribbled words written by wizards themselves in the middle of this information, noting the techniques and points for releasing the fiery curse. This seems to be the experience of the ancestors of the Rowell family in using the black magic of the fiery curse. There was even a handwriting recording the casting method and casting skills of the advanced spell-breaking spell the end of all curses, which could also extinguish the defy. This note, similar to the Half-Blood Prince's potions textbook, allowed Lin En to avoid many possible dangers when releasing the fiend fire in advance. Of course, what Lin En gained here in this afternoon was not just the fiend fire, but also many dark magics that he could not have come into contact with in Hogwarts Castle. For example, the Imperious curse that can control others, the Cruciatus curse that can torture others to make them live a life worse than death, and the Avada Kedavra curse that can take the life of others. The 3 unforgivable curses were all recorded on these parchments. Lin En, who had never come into contact with the dark magic, now learned the 3 unforgivable curses that were called taboos by wizards at one time. However, even if Lin En learned it, it was not certain whether he could use it. After all, in this Rowell manor, except Rowena and Gale, there was no one for Lin En to practice the 3 unforgivable curses, and Lin En could not use his mother and his own house elf to test the dark magic. Therefore, the only thing Lin En can try now is a fiery curse, and he must test it in a wide place. Otherwise, with the nature of the fiery curse devouring everything, if Lin En really cannot control the fiery curse as perfectly as he mastered the fire curse, then before Lin En can cast the 10,000 curses to extinguish it, the terrifying fiery curse will burn the entire Rowell Manor to ashes. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. Chapter 153, Absolute Control of Fire, the fierce fire that devours everything. More haste, less speed. Lin En did not try these black magics as soon as he learned them. Instead, he came to an open field south of Rowell Castle the next day, after making all kinds of adequate preparations. As early as the year when Lin En received the admission letter to Hogwarts, Lin En planned to vacate a training ground for magic battles in Rowell Manor. Therefore, in the past 2 or 3 years, the house elf Gale transplanted the original flowers, plants, and trees of this field to other gardens, and built a field as large as the Quidditch field. The ground here is marble, and there is a 2-meter high guardrail made of metal around it. At this time, Lin En stood in the center of the entire training ground, and on the ground in the 4 directions of him, there were a magic forbidden wand. These 4 magic forbidden wands were connected by a golden magic thread, and the other end of this golden magic thread was in Lin En's hand. Roll Manor is Lin En's home, and Lin En will naturally not let his home be threatened. If the fiendish flame he released got out of control, he would immediately pull the golden thread to activate the power of the 4 magic forbidden wands and extinguish the fiendish flame. Lin En raised the wand in his hand slightly, and a red flame with black light flashing appeared in front of him. The flame seemed to be outlined by ink, exuding the breath of black curse. In Lin En's perception, the fiendish flame seemed to have its own soul, and it was eager to escape from Lin En's control. However, although the fiendish flame had its own consciousness, its consciousness was disordered and violent like a beast. Its only thought was to devour everything around it and turn everything into its own nutrients. After sensing that the fiendish flame wanted to escape from his control, Lin En pressed down his wand slightly, and a powerful control force instantly spread out, completely controlling the fiendish flame. My fire affinity is effective for this fiendish flame, but the fiendish flame with independent consciousness cannot still distinguish between enemies and friends. After escaping from my control, Lin En looked at the fiendish flame that fell on the palm of his left hand with a serious look. This ball of red and black fiery flame burned in his palm, but it did not hurt Lin En at all. This fiery flame seemed harmless in Lin En's hand, but Lin En knew that it was more dangerous than the forbidden magic fire. Indeed, this fiery flame could be completely controlled by Lin En like other magical flames, and become a docile servant if he used his mind to control it. But once Lin En's attention was distracted, and he had no time to control this fiery flame, then it would return to its original unruly nature with its wild and independent consciousness like a wild beast, devouring everything around it without distinguishing between friend and foe. If it had intelligence, perhaps I could control it better, but unfortunately, it only had a wisp of disordered consciousness. Lin En sighed. If the fiery flame had its own intelligence, then he, who had a very high affinity for fire, could rely on his affinity for fire to subdue the fiery flame and let the fiery flame be used by him forever. But this fiend Fi has no intelligence. Just a wisp of disordered consciousness is not enough for it to understand Lin En's thoughts, let alone obey Lin En's orders. Facing the fiend Fi, Lin En had no choice but to use his absolute control over the flames to forcibly control the fiend Fi for his own use. Of course, even if it was just this, Lin En's control over the fiend Fi was unmatched. Even the Dark Lord Grindelwald controlled the fiend Fi by relying on his own powerful magic power, using his powerful magic power to forcibly control the fiend Fi. Although Lin En's method was similar, Lin En did not need to pay the price of those magic powers. His own affinity for fire gave him absolute control over fire. Let's stop here today. Lin En looked at the fiend fire in his hand and murmured. After successfully releasing this ball of fiend fire, Lin En had a desire in his heart, which made him want to convert all his magic power into the fiend fire to see how powerful the fiend fire he used all his strength could be. But before taking action, Lin En had a bad premonition, which made him feel that, if he really did this, something bad would happen. In fact, it was true. If Lin En converted all the magic power in his body into the fiery flame, then the fiery flame of such a huge magnitude would probably not be controlled by Lin En's soul strength. At this time, someone might ask, since Lin En has absolute control over the flame, how can the soul strength not be enough to control it? Exclamation mark. In fact, the so-called soul strength here refers to Lin En's ability to perceive the magic power around him. Just like Lin En can easily control the fiery flame in front of him to rise or go out, but he cannot control a flame that is hundreds of meters away and sways like a candle in the wind. That's because the flame has exceeded Lin En's perception range, so there is no trace of the flame in Lin En's magic vision. Similarly, with Lin En's talent for fire, if he converted all his magic power into fiend fire, the spreading fiend fire would be enough to cover most of the Roll Manor, and the radius of such a huge fiend fire alone would exceed the range of Lin En's soul perception. In this way, the part of fiend fire that exceeded the range would naturally escape Lin En's control and devour everything around it without restraint. In the next half month, Lin En tried various techniques to use fiend fire. He successfully transformed fiend fire into the shapes of wild wolves, lions, eagles, cheetahs and other beasts. These fiendfy transformed into beasts actually possessed the characteristics of these beasts. For example, the fiendfire in the form of a wild wolf actually had the ability to tear apart magic power with its flaming claws. This discovery surprised Lin En. If the fiendfire in the form of a wild wolf attacked the wizard who released the armor curse, then the fiendfire in the form of a wild wolf would be able to tear apart the armor curse directly with just a wave of its claws, and devour the magic power contained in the armor curse as its own fuel. Of course, in addition to the advantages of these beasts, some of the weaknesses of these beasts will also be inherited by Leafire. For example, when Lin En tried to condense the all curses into a beam to attack Leafire in wolf form, he found that the all curses that attacked the wolf's waist were more likely to extinguish Leafire than the all curses that attacked the wolf's head. Obviously, this is because Leafire inherited the characteristics of the wolf's iron head and tofu waist when he transformed into a wolf. Chapter 154 Wonderful Alchemy Array, The True Mystery of Alchemy. Soon, the time came to July 25th, which was the day when the portkey that Lin En took to France took effect. Early in the morning of that day, Lin En came to a deserted mountain. Behind a crooked tree halfway up the mountain, Lin En found a tattered pair of pants. After seeing the appearance of this portkey, Lin En's mouth twitched constantly. He really didn't expect that the people from the Ministry of Magic would use rotten pants as a portkey. Suppressing the nausea in his heart, Lin En pinched his nose with one hand and touched the portkey with the other hand. Not long after, the time for the portkey to be triggered came. Lin En only felt a hook hooked on his belly button, and his body flew up and moved rapidly forward. In a blink of an eye, Lin En came to a street in France. The house in front of him was Green's home. In order to prevent any more accidents on the road, Green registered his home as the destination when applying for the cross-border portkey. After relieving the dizziness caused by the portkey transmission, Lin En walked up and knocked on Green's door. The door opened, and Green appeared behind it. He asked Lin En to walk into the house. The reason why I asked you to come this time was written in the letter I sent to you by Owl. Did you see it? Green closed the door again and turned back to Lin En. Lin En nodded and said, I saw it all. It was the master who wanted to use the magic stone to refine the immortality potion to prolong life, and I need to return the magic stone to the master for a while. Green nodded slightly and continued, the date I agreed with the teacher is August 10th. While there is still enough time, let me see how your alchemy has improved in the past year. Before Lin En could say anything, Green took Lin En to the training ground and raised his wand to Lin En. After teaching Lin En the technique of refining alchemy arrays out of thin air last year, Green's way of testing Lin En's alchemy was no longer to refine an alchemy product in person, but to practice it in practice. After all, the fact that Lin En could refine a treasure like the Devil's Authority had already proved that Lin En's ability to refine all chemical products was strong enough, and it was meaningless to test him again. However, when using the alchemical array to fight, Lin En was constrained by factors such as magic power, strength and combat skills, and could not exert his full strength. Therefore, Green was not testing how much Lin En had improved in alchemy, but rather testing how much Lin En had developed his own alchemical potential. Seeing that his teacher had already taken a fighting stance, Lin En had no choice but to obey the teacher's arrangement. He waved his magic wand quickly, and magic power flowed into Lin En's body from the magic stone through the Devil's Authority, and a large amount of gold and silk threads were continuously sprayed out through Lin En's magic wand, transforming all chemical arrays around Lin En. In just 2 minutes, there were 3 alchemical arrays suspended around Lin En. Seeing this scene, Green nodded approvingly. It seems that Lin En has not been lazy this year, at least not in terms of using alchemy arrays for combat, because Lin En's speed in refining alchemy arrays has doubled compared to last year. Last year, it took Lin En 1 to 2 minutes to refine each alchemy array, but now, in just 2 minutes, 3 alchemy arrays have been formed around Lin En. The breakthrough in the formation time of the alchemy array is not only due to the increase in the strength of Lin En's magic power, but also due to Lin En's understanding and breakthrough in the array refining skills. After all, Lin En has the magic stone as his own energy source, and he has never lacked magic power, and the skills of alchemy are the real dominant factor. After the 3 alchemy arrays were formed, Lin En waved his magic wand, and the 3 alchemy arrays simultaneously shot out golden beams in the direction of Green. Seeing this, Green gently waved his magic wand, and 3 identical alchemy arrays instantly formed in front of him, and emitted an equal amount of golden beams to offset each other with Lin En. If that's all, it's probably not enough, Green said softly. I think you can learn more from the alchemy book I gave you. As Green's voice fell, a blue alchemy array suddenly emerged from under Lin's feet, and dozens of water blades were emitted from under Lin's feet in an instant, slashing towards Lin. However, facing the sneak attack of dozens of water blades, Lin seemed to have a premonition. Almost at the moment when these water blades appeared, a ball of red and black flames ignited in the palm of Lin's left hand. Lin turned his left palm and pressed it down, and the ball of red and black flames rushed towards the dozens of water blades, and when it came into contact with them, it devoured them completely. This is Li-Huo? Lin, when did you learn the Li-Huo spell? Green asked in disbelief. When he saw the ball of red and black flames, Green thought it was Lin's forbidden magic fire. After all, forbidden magic fire and Li-Huo are both a combination of red and black. But after seeing the fiendish fire swallowing up the power of the water blade, Green couldn't sit still. He finally remembered that compared to the fiendish fire with black and red, Lin En's forbidden magic fire should be black and red. The forbidden magic fire can be said to be a flame with red and black. Although it is similar to the fiendish fire, there are also differences between the two. Green looked at Lin En with some worry. He didn't know when his proud student had learned the evil black magic of the fiendish fire curse, and even reached the level of silent and wandless spell casting. This made Green worry whether his student's mind was corroded by black magic. Continue the test, teacher. I will tell you the truth later, Lin En said softly, and he waved his right hand holding the magic wand again. Seeing Lin En waving the magic wand, Green immediately raised his own vigilance, but the 3 alchemical arrays around Lin En did not change, except that the rate of emitting golden beams became faster. This made Green a little confused. Could it be that Lin En's spell was just to make the alchemical array shoot faster? Exclamation mark. But for him, there was no threat at all. It shouldn't be like this. My students would never do something meaningless. Green thought so, trusting his students. So he subconsciously waved his wand and cast a spherical all-round defensive armor spell on himself. Just as Green thought, Lin En's spell was not that simple. After Lin En waved his wand, an alchemical array flashing dark red light slowly took shape behind Green. Unlike the alchemical array that was as dazzling as a small sun around Lin En, the dark red alchemical array did not make any movement, and even did not transmit a little magic fluctuation, which made Green not realize the existence of this alchemical array at all. You know, the alchemical array around Lin En is just a common alchemical array used in actual combat, and there is never more than one alchemical array that can be used in actual combat, such as the azure alchemical array that appeared under Lin En's feet and fired water blades. Alchemical arrays are ever changing and hard to defend, and this is the true meaning of alchemy. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. Chapter 155, Burned by Fire. On the dark red alchemy array, a strange ripple flashed by, and the next moment, dense black cracks appeared on the invisible shield around Green. The breath of the curse stained the armor shield released by Green like a thorn in the bone, making the cracked magic shield unable to recover on its own. After sensing the threat behind him, Green turned around suddenly, and he looked at the dark red alchemy array without any magic fluctuations with some surprise. It was not until the sharp edge of the curse hit his armor spell that he sensed the threat behind him. The concealment of this dark red alchemy array is quite strong. Green's eyes showed some admiration. This dark red alchemy array was developed by Lin En after the end of the secret room, combining the knowledge and the alchemy books that Green asked him to study, and it has a very high concealment. This alchemical array can be refined without making any noise or magic fluctuations. After this dark red alchemical array is formed, Lin En can use it to launch a designated spell. Originally, this dark red alchemical array had certain disadvantages. That is, the magic fluctuations of the spell it emits will not be concealed, which means that the wizards attacked by this alchemical array can react when the spell is emitted from the alchemical array and gain enough time to take some measures to deal with the sneak attack spell. However, after Lin En learned the black magic of God's Shadowless from the Half-Blood Prince's potion textbook, this dark red alchemical array became unsolvable. God's Shadowless is a highly concealed black magic. Wizards facing this black magic must always be vigilant of the opponent's lip shape and casting movements to avoid the attack of God's Shadowless in advance. But now it is no longer Lin En himself who releases God's Shadowless, but the dark red alchemical array that is also highly concealed. In this situation, let alone Green, even Severus Snape, the inventor of the Shadowless Divine Sword, might not be able to react. The reason why Green was able to release the armor curse in advance was because of his understanding of his students, which made him sure that his students would not do anything meaningless in battle. An independently invented alchemical array? Not bad. It has met my expectations. Green nodded with satisfaction. He did not care about the curse contained in the Shadowless Divine Sword. Since Lin En had learned the extremely dangerous black magic such as the Fiery Curse, it was not surprising that he learned some curses. Since Lin En had mastered the skills of refining arrays in battle, he could let go a little. Thinking of this, Green waved the wand in his hand again. 3 alchemical arrays of different colors were formed in front of Lin En's left, right and head, and began to accumulate energy. The next moment, the 3 alchemical arrays attacked Lin En at the same time. The azure alchemical array in front of Lin En's left once again fired dozens of water blades, slashing at Lin En at lightning speed. The brown alchemical array in front of Lin En's right shot a giant light wave as thick as an adult's arm towards Lin En, and the purple alchemical array above Lin En's head instantly struck a thunderbolt, directly approaching Lin En's head. Facing this 3-sided attack, Lin En was not panicked at all. Lin En quickly waved his magic wand, and a bright red alchemical array formed under his feet. The next moment, red and black flames rose from this bright red alchemical array, covering Lin En's entire body. Endless fierce fire wrapped Lin En up, and swallowed all the alchemical magic that attacked him. After swallowing all the attacks, the fierce fire dispersed, revealing Lin En again. This bright red alchemical array is a defensive alchemical array that can store a kind of magic and release it to the alchemist when the alchemical array is activated. Generally speaking, alchemists will store defensive spells such as armor, or protection or peace guard in this alchemical array. But Lin En took a different approach and stored the fiend fire in it. After this bright red alchemical array was activated, the fiend fire stored in it wrapped Lin En up and protected Lin En from external attacks. The operating principle of this bright red alchemical array is somewhat similar to Grindelwald's fire shield. However, Grindelwald's fire shield is a combination of the fiend fire and the iron armor, while Lin En's is just pure fiend fire. If it weren't for Lin En's extremely high affinity for fire, which made him immune to fire, if other wizards came here, they would not be able to resist external attacks, and they would be burned to ashes by the rising fiend fire. Seeing that Lin En was safe and sound, after covering himself with fiend fire, Green could not help but feel very surprised, and his heart was at ease. If fiend fire could not harm Lin En, then his worry that Lin En's mind would be corroded by the evil black magic of fiend fire curse might not exist. Green continued to wave his wand. This time, the alchemical array that appeared in front of Lin En was completely black. After the formation of this alchemical array, Lin En suddenly realized that his magic power was blocked by an unknown force. He could no longer use any magic, and the alchemical array that was originally suspended around him was shattered in an instant. The function of this black alchemical array was to ban magic. When Lin En thought of this, Green in the distance had raised his wand and cast a disarming spell at Lin En. Looking at the disarming spell coming straight at him, Lin En raised his hand without hesitation, and the Desert Eagle appeared in his hand. Bang! Lin En pulled the trigger just before the disarming spell hit him, and a metal bullet spun at high speed and shot towards Green. Lin En was hit by the disarming spell, and fell to the ground, with the wand in his hand flying out. Seeing this, Green smiled. With a wave of his hand, an invisible magic power deflected the bullet, and then he lifted the black alchemical circle. Very good. When your own magic power was completely banned, and you couldn't use anything belonging to a wizard, you didn't panic, but calmly chose to use muggle weapons to fight back. You have passed this test. Green smiled and pulled Lin En up, commenting. You know, if he hadn't been on guard against the Desert Eagle in Lin En's hand. Otherwise, even if he was a wizard whose magic level was far higher than that of an elite aura, he would probably die after taking off the life-saving all-chemical product on his body. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156. The teacher teaches you to practice Avada Kedavra. Hearing this, Lin En smiled bitterly and said, "Teacher, you are too sudden. If I had reacted a little slower just now, I would have been defeated directly." Green chuckled and said, "The battlefield is ever changing. If I give you time to prepare, who will give you time in the real battle? Dumbledore told me that the future of the British wizarding world will not be peaceful. As your teacher, what I can do is to try to enhance your ability to protect yourself when facing danger." Lin En nodded slightly. He knew that what his teacher said was right. Green waved his wand and took Lin En back to the small room. Green sat down on the sofa and he looked much more serious. "Tell me, what is the fiend fi?" Green asked in a serious tone. Lin En smiled bitterly and then briefly told Green about how he and Irina had joined forces to kill the basilisk and destroy the Horcruxes this school year, and told him the reason why he wanted to learn the fiend fi. Then he told Green about learning the fiend fire and other dark magic in the old castle half a month ago. Green looked at Lin En thoughtfully. "Learning black magic to protect your companions? This reason is reasonable, but did you really achieve the silent and wandless casting of the fiery blaze in just half a month?" Lin En explained, "You know that I have a very high affinity for fire. Although the fiery blaze is essentially a curse, it is also a kind of fire. Therefore, when I release the fiery blaze, it feels no different from my release of ordinary magic flames. From this, I successfully achieved the silent and wandless casting of the fiery blaze." Green nodded slightly and then asked, "Okay, so, in addition to the fiery blaze, what other black magic have you learned?" Hearing Green's words, Lin En immediately showed an embarrassed look. Lin En scratched his head and said, "I have learned everything I should and shouldn't learn." Green frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" Lin En spread his hands. "I have learned all the 3 unforgivable curses, but I haven't used them yet." Hearing this, Green immediately sat up straight, his face full of seriousness. But soon, the serious look on his face faded, replaced by a deep sense of helplessness. "Well, since you have learned it, you will have to use it eventually. Rather than practicing the unforgivable curse without help and causing yourself to suffer backlash, it is better for me, your teacher, to protect you personally." Green sighed and stood up. "There is no other way. Who made me accept such a student? Exclamation mark. What else can I do? Just spoil him." Looking at Green who stood up, Lin En looked at him in disbelief. "Teacher, you mean you want to teach me to practice the unforgivable curses in person?" Green sighed again and said, "In fact, almost every powerful white wizard has mastered the methods of casting the 3 unforgivable curses, but they never use them on innocent people. As my student, you will naturally not be mediocre in the future, and the unforgivable curses are also something you will eventually come into contact with. However, I originally expected that the time would be when you are an adult, but now this time has been advanced by you. The backlash of the unforgivable curses on the caster is far greater than other black magic, and its danger is even higher than the fiery curse. Since you have learned the unforgivable curses, then I will naturally ensure that your mind is not eroded when you practice them. So, promise me that you will never practice the unforgivable curses secretly when I'm not around. If you want to practice, I will accompany you." Green said so. Listening to Green's earnest teachings, Lin En's eyes couldn't help but moisten. No matter from which angle you consider it, Grindelwald is a perfect teacher. He is powerful and wise, able to guide Lin En to constantly strengthen himself. He is kind and gentle, and will always consider Lin En. He is open-minded but not rigid. After Lin En learned the black magic, his first thought was not to stop Lin En, but to make Lin En's black magic controllable, so that it would not backfire on his students. It can be said that it is a great fortune for Lin En to have such a master. Do powerful white wizards master the unforgivable curse? Lin En nodded thoughtfully. Yes, even Dumbledore, who is called the greatest white wizard of this century, can still play the Vulcan curse very well. Dumbledore's Vulcan curse and Grindelwald's fire shield are both variants of the fiery curse, and isn't the fiery curse an evil black magic comparable to the unforgivable curse? Exclamation mark. This also confirms that what Lin En said in Dumbledore's headmaster's office is true. There is a big difference between having no sword in hand and having a sword in hand, but not using it. Although these powerful white wizards were reluctant to stab the swords into the chests of innocent people, it did not mean that they did not have a sword in their hands to protect themselves. Follow me, Green said lightly, and he grabbed Lin's wrist with his left hand. Apparition. Lin only felt his eyes go dark, and the next second, he found himself in a dirty alley. The dirtiness and shabbiness of this alley was far worse than Nocturne Alley in the UK. Teacher, where is this? Lin looked at Green beside him with some doubts. He believed that his teacher would never harm him. Green said concisely, not only do you have places where dark wizards gather in Britain, we also have them in France. This is Lenfer Alley, or in your British language, Hell Alley. It is the darkest and dirtiest gathering place for dark wizards in the French magic world. It is a den of filth and the most disorderly place. Even the Ministry of Magic cannot get its hands on it. Lin nodded and asked, so, my practice subjects are in this Lenfer Alley? Green said indifferently, those living in Lenfer Alley are all unforgivable dark wizards. The crimes they have committed are heinous. If they were in Britain, they would all be sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban, or even given the Dementor's kiss. There are no innocent people living here. If there are, they would have been eaten alive by those dark wizards long ago. Lenfer Alley is a shelter for dark wizards, but if a dark wizard is not dark enough, he will become the desert for other dark wizards. Do you understand? Lin En nodded again and said, I understand. Anyone we meet here can be killed. Green nodded slightly and said, yes, but you'd better not use large-scale spells, otherwise it will attract the attention of other dark wizards besides the target. I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to escape unscathed if we don't use the anti-magic wand. Once we use it, my identity will be exposed, and it will be difficult for me to explain to the outside world why I appeared in a place like Lefebvre Alley. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. Chapter 157, The Soul Leaving the Body, The Desperate Black Wizard. While Lin En and Green were talking, a dazzling green light flashed in a house dozens of meters away, followed by the muffled sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Seeing this, the two of them quickly kept quiet. Green winked at Lin En and walked quietly towards the direction of the house. Close your ears and listen. Lin En waved his wand lightly, and an invisible magic power spread out. Under the effect of the ear-closing spell, all enemies who appeared around Lin En would have an inexplicable buzzing sound in their ears, making them unable to hear any movement of Lin En. Lin En introduced the effect of the ear-closing spell to Green. After learning about the existence of such a magical spell, Green was also amazed. He no longer concealed his footsteps, but went directly to the window of the house. There was an old wizard lying on the ground in the house. The old wizard seemed to be just asleep, but Lin En and Green knew that the other party had already died under the killing curse. Not far from the old wizard, there was a black-robed wizard rummaging through something in the drawer of the house. This old man is worthy of living in a place like Lefebvre Lane. Haha, this house belongs to me now. I wonder what good things are hidden here. The black-robed wizard muttered to himself. He found a key from the drawer. It was the key to the vault of Gringotts in France. Judging from the appearance of this vault key, the vault that can be opened with it should not be located deep in Gringotts. In other words, the person who uses it does not need to verify his identity and can directly enter the vault on the shallow level of Gringotts and take out the money inside. Go ahead, let me see your imperious curse. Green looked at the black-robed wizard in the room expressionlessly and said to Lin indifferently. Lin nodded gently, and he put his wand into the window, pointed it at the black-robed wizard, and whispered, soul out of the body. A strange grey-white gas gushed out from the top of the wand, and sank into the body of the black-robed wizard. Then, Lin En felt that he could control the life and death of the black-robed wizard at will, as if the black-robed wizard was his puppet. Lin En thought, and tried to control the actions of the black-robed wizard with his mind. Even though the black-robed wizard was under the control of the imperious curse, he turned around and threw the vault key in his hand to Lin En, then picked up the table knife on the table and stabbed it into his abdomen. In an instant, blood flowed, but the black-robed wizard stood there sluggishly, without any movement, as if he could not feel the pain at all. Seeing this scene, Lin En couldn't help but feel cold in his heart. The imperious curse is so terrible. The creatures controlled by the imperious curse are completely at the mercy of others. If Lin En wanted, he could even control the black-robed wizard to kill all his relatives and friends with his own hands, and then cut off his own body with a knife. Lin En could imagine how desperate he would be if he woke up and faced the scene where all the people he loved were killed by him, and he was already half dead. After thinking about this, Lin En's determination became stronger. Only with enough power can you protect the things you cherish from being harmed by the enemy, and the fiery curse and the 3 unforgivable curses are just the beginning. Lin En did not continue to torment the black-robed wizard, but used the imperious curse to control the other party, and gave himself a quick death. Looking at the black-robed wizard who committed suicide by cutting his wrists, Lin En was silent for a long time. I don't know why. After easily controlling the black-robed wizard to commit suicide, the first thing that emerged in his heart was not the fear of the unforgivable curse such as the imperious curse, but a pleasure of being able to control the fate of others at will. You know, if Lin En did not use black magic to fight this black-robed wizard, I'm afraid Lin En would have to go all out to kill this black-robed wizard. After all, every black wizard who can survive in Lethab Valley has the strength to rival the elite auras. However, with the imperious curse, Lin En killed this black-robed wizard as easily as pinching an insignificant ant. This kind of pleasure of controlling life and death is really addictive. At this time, after seeing Lin's changing expression, Green took out a crystal pendant from his pocket without hesitation and put it on Lin's neck. Almost instantly, Lin felt as if a basin of cold water was poured over his head, giving him a chill. This strange feeling made him calm down, as if he had settled his personal affairs and entered the sage state. The cool feeling permeated his whole body, and the negative emotions caused by the imperious curse disappeared. What is this? Lin looked back at Green. He knew that all this must be the work of his teacher. Green said calmly, "This pendant is called Pure Heart. After wearing it, it can force the wearer to calm down and stay absolutely awake. Especially after using black magic, wearing it can help alleviate the erosion of black magic on one's mind. Of course, the role that Pure Heart can play is only to alleviate the backlash of black magic. It cannot cure the negative effects of black magic. The damage of black magic to the caster is accumulated day by day. If it is not controlled, it will eventually break out and destroy the caster's mind. Therefore, what we can do is to use black magic as little as possible and not let the impact of black magic on ourselves reach the critical value of outbreak. We can always rely on ourselves, not external things." Green said so. About 10 minutes after Lin En wore Pure Heart, Green took it off Lin En's neck. When wearing Pure Heart, Lin En remained absolutely calm, and in an absolutely calm state, Lin En naturally could not use the unforgivable curse that required extreme malice. Therefore, when practicing the unforgivable curse, Lin En still had to take off the Pure Heart, and when the mind was affected by negative emotions, after using the unforgivable curse, he would put on the Pure Heart to alleviate the negative effects. This is why Green said that the Pure Heart can only alleviate but not cure. After all, delayed justice is not real justice, and the role that can be played after using the unforgivable curse is naturally very limited. But even so, this Pure Heart is a life-saving elixir for most dark wizards. Green and Lin En continued to walk on the streets of Lethab Lane. It was daytime, not the main activity time for dark wizards, so they needed some time to find the desired target for casting spells. Soon, Lin En, led by Green, came to the backyard of a house. Looking through the crack of the door in the backyard, Lin En actually saw many children's bodies thrown casually on the floor of the backyard, and these children's bodies were not complete. Blood holes appeared on these bodies, as if someone had taken out their organs alive before these children died. A wizard in a black robe was waving his wand at the only living child in the yard. As the spell was chanted, a huge bloody hole suddenly appeared on the child's chest, and a living heart was caught in the hands of the black-robed wizard, and then put into a container filled with magic potion beside him to soak. In this backyard, there were more than 10 containers filled with various body organs. Seeing this crazy scene, Lin En felt angry. Chapter 158 Life and Death. Emotions devoured by violence. No wonder when Green brought Lin En to this left of the lane, he told him that everyone in this lane deserved to die. Kidnapping muggle or wizard children, and selling their body organs. This kind of behavior of taking human life lightly is simply outrageous. In Lin En's opinion, these dark wizards are no longer worthy of death, but they deserve to die 1,000 times. Originally, Lin En was still struggling with how to release the powerful Cruciatus curse. You know, the Cruciatus curse requires the caster to have an extreme desire to torture others, but Lin En is not a person who purely wants to torture others, and he can't have the evil thoughts of torturing others for fun, especially after experiencing the torture of the people he cherishes. But now, seeing this black wizard who is guilty of unforgivable crimes, the only thought in Lin En's mind is to cut this damn black wizard into pieces. Letting this damn black wizard die is too easy for him. Only by letting him experience the pain of living a life worse than death can Lin En relieve the hatred in his heart. When he saw this bloody scene, thinking of this, Lin En became more and more angry. However, how could someone as perceptive as Lin En not notice that his emotions were gradually getting out of control? Exclamation mark. However, after realizing that his emotions were somewhat out of control, Lin En not only did not suppress his anger, but instead allowed this flame of anger like a spark to continue to burn, and eventually turned into a prairie fire, drilling the heart and digging out the bones. The next moment, Lin En pointed his wand at the black-robed wizard in the backyard without hesitation. His voice was as cold as ice, as if it was the whisper of the god of death from hell. A ray like red thunder came out from the top of Lin En's wand and shot towards the direction of the black-robed wizard. This violent red beam actually directly shattered the thick wooden door in the backyard and hit the black-robed wizard hard. RRR. The black-robed wizard flew up and hit the stone wall behind him. He kept screaming violently. The black-robed wizard's body twisted, and in his fierce struggle, his black wizard robe fell to the ground, revealing the face of a man with shifty eyes. The shifty-eyed guy's facial features were completely twisted together, and the pain of living a life worse than death constantly stimulated his nerves. He felt as if he was being tortured, and every muscle was feeling the pain of a knife cutting. Not long after, the man was bleeding from all 7 orifices. He had no strength to struggle. His body was constantly twitching under the torture of the Cruciatus curse, and he was no longer human. He looked at Lin En with a look of begging for mercy. However, Lin En had no mercy on this human trafficker in the magic world. He increased the magic power he injected into his wand a little bit, and the red light connecting Lin En's wand and the man's body became thick again. Another 3 or 4 minutes passed, and the man was no longer breathing. Seeing this, Lin En stopped casting the spell in his hand. Under the continuous Cruciatus curse, Lin En's eyes had turned red. A pleasure that he didn't know whether it was from punishing the wicked or from torturing people made Lin En's mouth curl up uncontrollably. Lin En clearly understood that if he indulged himself in using the Cruciatus curse wantonly in the future, then even if his original intention was to punish the wicked at the beginning, he would eventually become a madman who tortured people for fun. Green quickly hung the pure heart around Lin En's neck again, suppressed Lin En's violent emotions, and made Lin En calm down again. When Lin En calmed down, Green glanced at the bloody scene in the yard and frowned. Green swung the wand in his hand, and a white light flashed. The next moment, all the bodies in the yard, including the containers soaked with human organs, disappeared under the effect of the powerful vanishing curse. Let's go. After waiting for Lin En to calm down, Green led Lin En out of the yard, and continued to look for the target in left of the rally. Soon, the two saw an old witch holding a plastic bag filled with unknown blood not far ahead. Go ahead, Green said lightly. Lin nodded, and a killing intent surged in his heart. Avada Kedavra, Lin shouted, and a dark green beam of light like a ghost burst out of the air and hit the back of the old witch. After 3 years of baptism, Lin has witnessed countless killings, and participated in killings more than once, so it is not difficult for him to gather killing intent in his heart. Without any hesitation or any fierce confrontation, the old witch died just like that, and her life was taken away by a sudden green light. Yes, the killing curse is so unsolvable that a light spell can take a person's life. At the moment, when the killing curse was cast to kill the old witch, Lin seemed to understand why Voldemort was so keen on using the killing curse to kill people. The pleasure of life and death is really unforgettable. However, understanding is not the same as approval. Even if he has the power of life and death, Lin En will never attack innocent people. At this time, the old witch was killed by Lin En on the street, which attracted the attention of some dark wizards around. The two dark wizards killed by Lin En before were killed in their own homes, so naturally no one would notice them. But this old witch was different. She was walking on the streets of Lefebvre Lane, but was inexplicably killed by a killing curse. Apparition. Without waiting for the dark wizards to stick their heads out to check the situation, Green put the pure heart on Lin En's neck again, then grabbed Lin En's hand, cast apparition and left this place of trouble. When Lin En came to his senses, he had returned to Green's residence with Green. Lin En patted his chest with some lingering fear. What he had experienced in just half an hour was even more exciting than his second year at Hogwarts. In less than half an hour, he actually released 3 unforgivable curses on others one after another. If he were caught by the auras in the British wizarding world, he would be sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban simply for the crime of casting the unforgivable curse on others. The practice of the unforgivable curse must be relaxed and moderate, otherwise it will only be excessive. In the next few days, I will take you to Lefebvre, but you can only use the unforgivable curse once a day at most, Green said lightly. Lin nodded in approval. During the 3 times he cast the unforgivable curse, he felt as if his emotions were dominated by an indescribable force, making it easier for him to lose control of his emotions. If it weren't for Green using Kingston to force him to calm down after each casting of the unforgivable curse, I'm afraid Lin's mind would have been eroded by violent emotions long ago. Despite Kingston's presence, Green could still feel that Lin, who had returned from Lefebvre, had become much more gloomy. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. Chapter 159. You would rather believe her than believe that I'm Qin Shi Huang? Exclamation mark. Teacher, can I learn how to make the pure heart? Lin asked. Green nodded slightly and said, yes, I will teach you how to make the pure heart before I take you to the teacher's residence. But before that, I have to teach you a new spell, the Patronus. The function of the pure heart is to force you to calm down, but it cannot guide your heart to be good, while the Patronus can do this. Releasing the Patronus all year round can help to condense happy emotions, making you more cheerful and more positive. Green introduced to Lin. Lin naturally understood the function of the Patronus, and he immediately expressed his willingness to learn the Patronus. So Green began to talk about the theoretical knowledge of the Patronus. Green used his magic wand to tap a metal disc next to the sofa, and the next second, the theoretical knowledge related to the Patronus was projected on the wall not far away by an alchemical device. It seems that Green is also a teacher who likes to use PPT to teach. Usually, only righteous wizards can use the Patronus charm. If a dark wizard with an evil heart tries to use it, not only will he not be able to summon the Patronus, but it will cause the wand to backfire, and the wand will summon maggots to devour the user. In the magic world, people generally believe that the so-called standard of justice and evil is defined by whether the wizard has used black magic, but this is a joke in my opinion. In my research, a wizard, even a dark wizard who has done all kinds of bad things, as long as he or she still has a trace of goodness in his or her heart and has a beautiful expectation for the world, then he or she has the possibility of successfully releasing the Patronus. Only the dark wizard whose heart is completely occupied by evil and darkness, and whose only remaining reason is completely swallowed up by the violence of black magic, will be backfired by the Patronus. Green said this after explaining the principle of the Patronus charm. Lin held a notebook in his hand, and he quickly recorded everything that Green said. Lin was very supportive of Green's opinion. Even Umbridge, a pink toad with a twisted heart and full of darkness, can release a complete Patronus charm, not to mention those wizards who have only been forced to use some black magic, but still have light in their hearts. If Umbridge is a righteous wizard, then Lin can only say, you would rather believe her than believe that I'm Qin Shi Huang? Exclamation mark. Soon, Green taught Lin the spell and casting skills of the Patronus charm. Expecto Patronus. Lin tried to chant the spell, and waved his wand. A faint, almost invisible silver white mist floated out of his wand and then dissipated in the air. Like I just told you, concentrate and recall the happiest things in your heart and then inject your happiest emotions and your magic power into the wand. Green said so. Lin nodded slightly and he began to recall the times when he felt happy. Well, happy things, what are they? In the past life, I had been struggling at the bottom of society until I was burned to death by the blazing flames while saving people from a fire. There should be no happiness in my life. So what about this life? Received the admission letter from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, became the disciple of Professor Green, and stepped into the threshold of alchemy, obtained the Philosopher's Stone, and had almost endless energy. Pictures appeared in Lin En's mind, and thick silver white mist flew out from the top of Lin En's wand. These silver white mists were tightly intertwined, illuminating the whole room abnormally brightly. What else? Confessed my identity as a time traveler to her, and had a companion from the same hometown as me in this strange world. As Lin En recalled, the silver light spewed out by the wand became more and more dazzling. At this moment, a beautiful picture appeared in Lin En's mind. The warm sunshine fell on the girl's snow white hair. In the narrow tea house, the girl shyly lowered her head and sipped the steaming coffee. The decorations full of girlish feelings dotted the atmosphere of the tea house. Couples kissing in pairs on the seats nearby made the originally dim tea house warm and bright. Time seemed to be frozen at that moment, and no one broke the beautiful tranquility. The dazzling silver light slowly condensed in one direction and gradually formed the outline of an animal. Soon, the excess light dissipated, and a crystal clear, silver white wolf appeared in the small room. This is a silver wolf transformed by a patron saint. The silver wolf approached Lin En docilely and gently rubbed Lin En's arm with its head. Seeing this silver wolf emitting a soft silver white light, Lin En couldn't help but smile. He gently stroked the silver wolf's soft hair, and the violent color in the dark red eyes completely dissipated like smoke, replaced by endless tenderness. Incredible, Lin, you just cast the Patronus charm for the first time, and you actually released a physical Patronus. Is it a wolf? Green looked at Lin in amazement. A smile appeared on Lin's lips, and he said gently, yes, teacher, it's a wolf. After raising his hand to take back the silver wolf, Lin asked, since I have learned the Patronus charm, then teacher, can I learn to refine the pure heart? Green smiled and nodded, saying, of course, my student. But in the coming days, you need to practice the Patronus charm every day. I don't ask you to master the silent and wandless casting of the Patronus charm in a short time, but you must at least be able to master its silent casting before school starts. It would be even better if you can do it without a wand. Faced with the task assigned to him by Green, Lin naturally agreed. Green handed a not so thick notebook to Lin En and said, this is a notebook I used to record the data of all chemical experiments when I was researching and inventing Kinksin. It records the process of refining Kinksin and some failed or successful data. In addition, it also contains my research ideas for refining Kinksin. Lin En took the notebook as if it were a treasure, but when he looked at Green again, he found that Green had another thick book in his hand. This alchemy book records all the alchemical runes used in refining Kinksin, as well as the prototypes of some alchemical arrays related to it. After you have thoroughly understood this alchemy book and my alchemical experiment notes, you can come to me to learn the refining techniques of Kinksin. Green continued to smile. Lin En took the book, which was thicker than all the textbooks of all the required courses in the same academic year at Hogwarts, with a little stiffness. For some reason, he suddenly felt that Green's smile became terrifying. Chapter 116 Youth Scamander. In the following week, Lin En followed Green to Lefebvre Lane every day to find a lone dark wizard to cast an unforgivable curse. Since Lin En's frequency of casting the unforgivable curse was reduced to once a day, coupled with the assistance of the pure heart and the Patronus charm, Lin En's negative emotional impact from the unforgivable curse was infinitely close to zero. In addition to the opportunity to practice the unforgivable curse once a day, Lin En spent most of his time studying the alchemy book and Green's alchemy experiment notes. On August 1st, Lin En finally finished these two books and reached the threshold of learning the method of refining the pure heart. Unlike previous alchemy, Lin En used alchemy to refine mostly some offensive or defensive alchemy products. that were directly used to strengthen wizards. This time, what he wanted to learn was the pure heart, an alchemy product that could affect the wizard's emotions, mind, and even soul. Of course, the difficulty of refining the pure heart does not lie in what type of alchemy product it is, but in the influence of alchemy on mysterious things such as emotions, mind, and soul. Teacher, I have finished reading these 2 books. Lin En returned the 2 books to Green and said softly. Green smiled and nodded. He grabbed Lin En's shoulder with one hand and placed his other hand on the door handle of another door. With the flash of magic power, Lin En found that he and Green appeared in another small space. This small space, like the underground training ground in Green's house, was a special space created by Green using alchemy. This special space was much smaller than the training ground. The ground, walls and ceiling here were all made of silver white metal, and in front of the 2 were a large number of alchemy equipment. Obviously, this was Green's alchemy laboratory. After bringing Lin En here, Green began to explain the key points of refining alchemy products such as Kingsin. If it was just for refining Kingsin, then Lin En would have learned it long ago, after studying Green's alchemy experiment notes. The knowledge that Green taught now allowed Lin En to use Kingsin as the starting point, and learn to refine this alchemy array that can affect the wizard's emotions, mind and even soul. While following Green's steps and trying to start alchemy, Lin En was surprised to find that these alchemical runes and alchemical arrays that could affect the wizard's mind were similar to the alchemical runes and alchemical arrays he got from the Mirror of Their Eyes last year. After thinking about the main function of the Mirror of Their Eyes, which is to absorb the things that the wizard desires most and show them, Lin En was relieved. The Mirror of Their Eyes can absorb the things that the wizard desires most, while black magic can affect the wizard's mind, making him addicted to it, and eventually making a big mistake. If I can combine the 2, then can I not refine an alchemical array that can create an illusion that makes the wizard addicted? Lin En thought in his heart. If it comes to objects that can create illusions that make wizards deeply trapped in them and even die for them, then the first thing that Lin En thinks of is the Resurrection Stone, one of the 3 Deathly Hallows. The Resurrection Stone is rumored to be able to revive the dead, but in fact, it can only present an illusion to the holder. Not only that, the illusion presented by the Resurrection Stone not only cannot satisfy the holder, but will induce the holder to be deeply trapped in it, and even kill himself, in order to be with someone who has long died. After learning the alchemy related to alchemical products such as Kingsin, that can affect the emotions, mind and soul of wizards, combined with the alchemical samples provided to him by the Mirror of Their Eyes, Lin En is confident that he can create the prototype of this illusion. If he can observe the Deathly Hallows such as the Resurrection Stone, then Lin En can even guarantee that he can refine a real fatal illusion that leads people to death. While Lin En was immersed in the alchemical experiment, Britain, Scottish Highlands, outside Hogwarts Castle, the door of Hagrid's hut was knocked by a crisp knock, and Hagrid opened the wooden door. "You are here so early, Irina." Hagrid smiled and said to the girl with snow white hair and ice blue eyes who appeared at the door. Irina nodded obediently and said with a smile, "I took the earliest Hogwarts Express to school early in the morning. After all, we are going to visit the old man, so we can't keep him waiting for too long." Hagrid looked up at the sun outside the door. With the speed of the Hogwarts Express, which departed at 11 AM on the first day of school and arrived in the evening, Irina was able to reach Hogwarts Castle at noon, and I'm afraid she got on the train at 5 or 6 in the morning. Yes, we are going to visit Mr. Scamander, but we can't let Mr. Scamander wait for us too long." Hagrid laughed and wiped the sweat from his forehead, grinning. Yes, the old man that Irina and Hagrid agreed to visit together this summer vacation was Mr. Newt Scamander, a famous British magic zoologist. As the author of the textbook Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which is about protecting magical animals, Newt Scamander is not only famous in the UK, but also has a lot of reputation in the entire magic world. When resisting the first generation of Dark Lord Gellert Grindelwald, Newt Scamander made a great effort. Well, it means that his own Niffler stole someone's marriage certificate. Blood alliance. Of course, not every country's Ministry of Magic has a friendly attitude towards Mr. Newt Scamander. For example, the Magical Congress of the United States of America does not like him very much. Hagrid went back to the house to pack up the things he would bring for the meeting, and then walked out of the hut again and locked the door of the house. Hagrid cast his eyes on the petite Irina beside him and said, "Mr. Scamander now lives in Dorset. I think we need to take the night bus to Dorset." Hearing this, Irina's face turned pale. Although she has never taken the night bus herself, its dangerous degree is obvious to all. She doesn't want to vomit all the food she ate in the morning. But obviously, she can't change Hagrid's will. After following Hagrid out of the scope of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Irina raised her wand high on the side of the road. The next second, a deafening bang sounded, a strong light shone over, and a 3-story bright purple bus suddenly stopped in front of Irina and Hagrid. Chapter 161. This is not the car to the underworld. On the windshield of the bus, Irina could see the words night bus written in golden letters. At this time, a boy in a purple uniform jumped off the night bus and shouted to Irina and Hagrid, "Welcome to the night bus, an emergency passenger bus for witches or wizards in distress. Just hold out your wand and get on the bus, and we will take you anywhere you want to go. My name is Stan Shunpike, and I'm your conductor tonight." Irina looked over and saw this boy, who looked about 18 or 19 years old, with a pair of big protruding ears and a few pimples on his face, standing at the door. Hagrid walked up and asked, "Hello, how much does it cost to go to Dorset?" Hagrid reported the location of a muggle shopping mall near Newt Scamander's residence to Stan Shunpike. 11 sickles, sir." Thunberg raised his head with great effort and looked at the tall Hagrid. "But if you pay 14, you can get chocolate, and if you pay 15, you can get a thermos and a toothbrush. The color is up to you." Hagrid counted out 14 sickles from his pocket and handed them to Thunberg, then struggled to get into the relatively narrow door and into the night bus. Irina handed Thunberg 11 sickles. Although the chocolate was good, she didn't want to enjoy it and then spit it all out. After Hagrid and Irina got on the bus, Thunberg closed the door. The night bus is an emergency passenger transport for wizards in distress. Wizards rarely choose to take the night bus, a means of transportation in the underworld, in broad daylight. Therefore, when Irina and Hagrid got on the bus, there was no one in the bus, except the driver and the conductor Thunberg. There were no seats in the bus. Instead, 6 or 7 brass-framed beds were placed next to the windows with curtains drawn. Candles were lit on the brackets next to each bed. The dim candlelight barely illuminated the wooden wall and the pale face of the conductor, Sam Park, who had been working late all year round. In this warm night bus, Irina shuddered inexplicably. She felt that she was not sitting on the night bus, but on a hearse to the underworld. "You sleep in these 2 beds," Sam Park whispered, pointing to the 2 beds behind the driver. Hagrid's huge body was particularly abrupt in this night bus. He tried hard to curl himself up in the bed, but still made the fragile and short bed shaky. Irina waved her wand and conjured 4 chains to fix herself firmly on the bed. Then she closed her eyes, as if she was ready to die. "Drive, Ern." Sam Park sat in the armchair next to the driver and said to the driver. Another deafening sound rang out, and the night bus launched and rushed out directly from the spot. Bang! As the crash sounded, Irina turned her head and saw that the bed where Hagrid was lying finally couldn't support his weight and collapsed. Under the inertia caused by the night bus's launch, Hagrid's head slammed against the wooden wall and even almost broke the wall. Seeing this scene, Irina's mouth twitched slightly. She waved her wand again, and several chains appeared, binding Hagrid tightly to the floor, which saved Hagrid from the pain of flying around in the car and getting bruised and swollen. The night bus rushed across the street quickly, even rushing directly onto the sidewalk, flying between streetlights, mailboxes, and trash cans. When the night bus approached these obstacles, they automatically avoided them under the effect of a strange magic, and automatically returned to their original positions after the night bus left. Moreover, when the night bus was about to pass through a narrow alley that was less than 1 meter wide, either a magical force would compress the entire night bus from the outside into a biscuit-like thinness without changing the scene inside the bus, and then restore it to its original state after passing through the alley, or a magical force would break the houses on both sides of the alley apart and restore them to their original state after the night bus passed through. Although Irina had already fixed herself to the bed and could not move, the night bus, which made a deafening noise at any time and could jump 100 miles in one step, made it impossible for Irina to fall asleep on this bed. Irina only felt her stomach churning, and the sudden dizziness made her almost want to vomit her stomach acid. On the side, the tall Hagrid did not feel much about the bumps. He shook his head and waited for the night bus to reach their destination. As the night bus was moving around, Thornpack handed Hagrid a cup of hot chocolate with steaming white mist. The night bus turned suddenly, and he almost spilled the hot chocolate on Hagrid. Hagrid motioned Irina to loosen the chain that bound his right hand, and then he drank the chocolate in one gulp, saying contentedly, "Oh, thank you." The night bus was very fast, and it took less than half an hour to reach Dorset. "Here we are, sir and lady." Thornpack opened the door and bowed slightly to Irina and Hagrid. The two got off the night bus, and not far from them was the Muggle shopping mall that Hagrid had just mentioned. The night bus drove away again, and Irina bent over on the spot, retching continuously. Fortunately, the breakfast had been digested after 6 or 7 hours, otherwise Irina would have been very uncomfortable. Hagrid patted Irina's back calmly and said, "Let's go. We have to walk to Mr. Scamander's house. You can take a break on the way." Irina nodded with difficulty and followed Hagrid's steps. The two walked in Dorset for nearly half an hour and came to a villa area on the edge of Dorset. Each villa in this villa area is very large, equivalent to a small castle, and the yard attached to each villa can be compared to 2 large playgrounds. These are clearly small manors. Irina and Hagrid came to the end of the villa area. Careful Irina found that among the house numbers on her right, the house number of the villa behind the house number 41 was 43, and there was no house number 42. Chapter 162. Ruthless time wipes away things people hold. Irina, write down the address on this note. Hagrid took out a crumpled note from his pocket and handed it to Irina. Irina looked closely and found that the note read, "Number 42, Green Meadow Villa District, Dorset, England." After Irina finished reading the note, she was surprised to find that a large villa exactly the same as the villas on both sides appeared out of thin air between number 41 and number 43, squeezing the villas on both sides and appearing in front of Irina and Hagrid. "Is this the Fidelius charm?" Exclamation mark. Irina thought so, and she remembered that the Roll Manor, where Lin's family lived, was also the place where the Fidelius charm was cast. However, when Irina went to the Roll Manor as a guest, she was directly teleported in through Gale's apparition, so she didn't need to remember the address of the Roll Manor. At this time, a flame suddenly ignited on the note in Irina's hand, and the note was burned to ashes without hurting Irina's hand. Hagrid walked to the fence outside the villa and rang the doorbell. Soon, an old man who looked very healthy walked out of the villa and opened the fence. "Oh, Rubeus, long time no see." The old man called Hagrid's name affectionately. Hagrid said respectfully, "It's nice to see you again, Mr. Scamander. By the way, her name is Irina Lovell, a second-year student in Gryffindor, and she wants to come with me to visit you." Yes, this old man is Newt Scamander. The young man is now grey-haired, but from his agile movements, it can be seen that his vitality is still as good as before. "Oh." Newt looked at Irina with interest. "Hello, Miss Lovell." "Hello, Mr. Scamander. I know you, the most famous magic animal scientist in the UK. I heard that you have many magical animal partners. I also like magical animals, so I asked Hagrid to take me to visit you," Irina said in a light tone, her eyes sparkling, and she looked like a little fangirl. How could she not admire Newt? Exclamation mark. Newt has raised more magical animals than she has eaten chocolate. Newt listened with a smile, and when he heard Irina call his magical animals partners instead of pets, his praise was almost beyond words. You know, when Newt met with other bigwigs, those bigwigs called Newt's magical animals almost all pets, beasts or small animals. Few people would call them partners or friends. The little witch in front of him, however, addressed him as partner. Newt could see that the little witch in front of him really loved magical creatures, not the valuable materials on them. So that's how it is. "You are very welcome, Miss Lovell. Can I call you Irina?" Newt said softly. Irina nodded like pounding garlic. "Of course, Mr. Scamander." Irina and Hagrid followed Newt into the big villa. After arriving in the living room, Irina saw an old lady with a charming demeanor coming out of the kitchen with a dish. "This is Tina, my wife," Newt introduced Irina. Hagrid obviously knew Tina a long time ago. After he greeted her, he moved his huge body and sat down on a larger chair specially prepared for him at the dining table. Irina greeted Tina respectfully. "Hello, Mrs. Scamander. Welcome. Please sit down. Lunch will be ready soon." Tina smiled and nodded to her. From Newt's tone, she could hear that he loved this little witch very much, so Tina's tone was also very gentle. Not long after, Tina brought the last dish to the table, and she sat down on the chair next to Newt. Smelling the aroma of food, King Van Zyobeo, who were hiding in Irina's backpack, couldn't help but stick their heads out to see what delicious food could emit such a fragrance. "Is this your partner, Irina?" Seeing the Botricle and Niffler quietly appearing on Irina's shoulder, Newt couldn't help but say with some joy and surprise. When he saw a Botricle and a Niffler appearing on Irina's shoulder, Newt felt as if he saw himself when he was young, and at that time he also had a Botricle named Pickett and a naughty Niffler. But now, Pickett and the naughty Niffler have long gone. Although they left their offspring to accompany Newt, those young Botricles and Nifflers only made Newt more sad and miss them. Time is a butcher's knife, ruthlessly taking away the things he cherished, but making his memories so real. Irina nodded. She rubbed King Van Zyobeo with her little face intimately, and said with a faint smile, "Yes, her name is King V, his name is Zyobeo, they are my friends." At this time, King Van Zyobeo also jumped from her shoulders to the table. Zyobeo stretched out his paw and pointed at a dish on the plate, looking at Irina with eager eyes. Seeing this scene, Newt's eyes couldn't help but moisten. How beautiful. "Let them eat together." Newt had a soft smile on his face. He said gently, and took 2 plates that were obviously several sizes smaller from the kitchen. Those were the plates that Pickett and the naughty Sniff had used. "Thank you." Irina placed the 2 plates, which were several sizes smaller, in front of King Van Zyobeo, and scooped a spoonful of the dishes they pointed at, and placed them on the plates in front of them. After they had a delicious lunch, Tina went to clean up the dishes, while Newt took Irina and Hagrid to the backyard. In the middle of the backyard, Irina saw a suitcase fixed to a stone pillar. "Rubber, the Zawu you've been thinking about is getting closer recently. You can try to touch it," Newt said to Hagrid, while opening the suitcase, talking and laughing. This suitcase fixed to the stone pillar was the wonderful suitcase with a cave in the world and countless magical animals living inside. The last time Hagrid came to visit Newt led Hagrid into the space inside the suitcase. The cat that Hagrid liked the most in the suitcase was the big cat Zawu. However, it was not a coincidence that the Zawu was in a more irritable period when Hagrid came last time, so Hagrid did not get in touch with the big cat Zawu as he wished. "Zawu?" Irina looked over with some curiosity. The Zawu that Newt was talking about. Could it be the big cat Zawu that helped Newt a lot during the Grindelwald period? Exclamation mark. Unlike Botricle and Niffler, Zawu has a very long lifespan, so it is not surprising that the big cat Zawu can still accompany Newt. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163, Enthusiastic Fantastic Beasts. Seeing Irina's curiosity, Newt said, "Oh, that Zawu is my partner, a magical animal from the mysterious East. I rescued it from a circus performing in Paris when I was young. Don't be fooled by its scary appearance, but it is very gentle." Newt took Irina and Hagrid into the suitcase fixed on the stone pillar. Soon, Irina found herself in a small wooden shed. In this small wooden shed, there was a camp bed, tropical clothes and various tools were hung on the wall, and many books and manuscripts were neatly placed on a table. "Welcome to my world." Newt smiled, opened the door of the small wooden shed, and opened his hands. I saw a new world behind Newt, and this world was divided into many different areas, such as bamboo forests, caves, grasslands, sand, rainforests, pools, and snow, etc. Different magical animals live in these different areas. From a distance, this place is as beautiful as a landscape painting, which makes people obsessed. Irina opened her mouth in shock. Although the scenes she saw in the movie in her previous life were quite tense, the shock she felt was far less than what she experienced in person. Under Newt's leadership, Irina and Hagrid came to the place where the big cat Zawu lived. Irina saw a big cat lying lazily on the lawn not far away. The big cat was as big as an elephant, with 5 colors of hair on its body, and its tail was almost 1/3 the length of the basilisk's body. This big cat was the Zawu. The claws of this Zawu were extremely sharp, and it looked very fierce. There were faint scars on its body, which were scars left when it was abused in the circus. Although this Zawu was well treated by Newt, these faint scars still follow it to this day. These are chickens and ducks that died naturally a few days ago. You can try to feed it. Newt handed a bucket of raw meat to Hagrid. Zawu looks very scary, but it is actually a magical animal with a very gentle temperament. It never hurts humans, and only eats the meat of animals that died naturally. Hagrid took the iron bucket with surprise, and then approached the big cat Zawu carefully. Zawu noticed Hagrid. When it saw Hagrid's huge body approaching it, it subconsciously took a step back. After discovering Hagrid's old friend Newt behind him, it settled down and waited quietly for Hagrid to approach. Soon, Hagrid came to Zawu. He placed the iron bucket filled with chickens and ducks that died naturally in front of Zawu, and carefully reached out to touch Zawu's big head. After seeing the food in front of it, Zawu called out happily. It did not refuse Hagrid's touch, but lowered its head and ate it with relish. Hagrid looked very happy. He did not expect that this big cat Zawu, who looked extremely fierce on the outside, was actually so kind. After Zawu finished eating the food in the bucket, Hagrid also retreated to Newt. "Can I touch it?" Irina looked at the big cat Zawu eagerly, and she turned to look at Newt. Newt was a little embarrassed, of course, "But I don't have any food for you to feed it." "It doesn't matter." Irina shook her head. "Then I'll get closer to take a look at it." After obtaining Newt's consent, Irina approached the big cat Zawu step by step. However, when Irina was less than 10 meters away from Zawu, something strange happened. After Zawu looked up and saw Irina, he actually pounced directly at Irina, which made Newt and Hagrid in the distance feel nervous. "No!" Newt shouted. He didn't expect that Zawu, who was usually gentle, would suddenly attack this cute little witch. He wanted to stop Zawu, but Zawu was only a few meters away from Irina at this time, which made him have no time to pull out his wand. However, after Zawu knocked Irina to the ground, an unexpected scene appeared. After Zawu knocked Irina to the ground, he did not hurt Irina, but licked Irina's face affectionately, and then rubbed Irina's arm with his furry head. At this time, Zawu was like a kitten asking for a hug from his owner. Newt looked over in disbelief. Although Zawu was very affectionate, Newt did not expect Zawu to be so close to a wizard. Even to Newt himself, Zawu had never been so affectionate. Ha ha ha, oh, stop it. Zawu's soft hair brushed against Irina's face, making Irina feel a little itchy. Irina laughed and gently pushed Zawu in front of her away, stood up again, and then reached out and rubbed its head hard. Zawu was lying on the ground on his side, enjoying himself, exposing his belly. Newt came over with a complicated look on his face and said in a surprised tone, "Irina, I didn't expect it to like you so much." Irina stretched out her hand to rub Zawu's belly, grinning. "Maybe I have a talent for affinity with magical animals. Most of the magical animals I have come into contact with are willing to get close to me." "Affinity with magical animals?" Newt said in admiration. "There are many wizards with this special talent, including me, but I have never seen someone like you who can make magical animals get particularly close to you when they first see you." When Newt first came into contact with those magical animals, he didn't know how much effort he had to put in to gain their trust. However, Irina didn't have to do anything to make these magical animals show her the greatest kindness and enthusiasm, which made Newt very envious. After visiting Zawu, Newt took Irina and Hagrid to visit the areas where Botricle, Niffler Invisible Beast, Ball-Eye Bird, Horned Beast, Moon Ox, Bird Snake, Venomous Horned Beast and Nangu Panther lived. These magical animals, like Zawu, were very friendly and enthusiastic to Irina. You said before that most magical animals like you, but that also means that there are magical animals that don't like you, Newt said. But even venomous horned beast and Nangu panther, which are not close to humans, like you very much. I really can't imagine any magical animal that would hate you. Irina thought for a moment and said, the basilisk doesn't like me. Of course, I don't like it either. Hearing this, Newt couldn't help but be a little surprised. Basilisk? Have you seen such a dangerous guy? Irina nodded gently, and she simply summarized what happened in the last school year to Newt. Newt was shocked that Irina could team up with another little wizard to kill the basilisk that had survived for 1,000 years. Then he thought about it and said, there may be two possibilities. One is that basilisks are man-made creatures. They are not like real magical animals that are attracted to us wizards who have magical animal affinity. The second possibility is that basilisks are evil creatures and are inherently opposed to us. Irina agreed. No matter which possibility it is, basilisks cannot be generalized with other magical animals. Just like Irina likes most magical animals, whether they are cute or fierce, but she hates basilisks. Next is the last area we are going to today. There lives a curled winged demon. Newt continued to walk forward and said loudly, Chapter 164 Irina is my mother. The habitat of the winged demon is not far from the area where the Nangu leopard is located. It is also a densely wooded area. When the three entered the forest, Irina saw an ostrich egg-sized egg sac covered with barbs hanging upside down on a branch not far ahead. This special egg sac looks colorful and stands out against the surrounding emerald green leaves. Newt waved at the egg sac, and it instantly expanded and turned into a bat-like creature with blue-green skeleton-like wings. Obviously, this magical animal is the winged demon living here. The winged demon flew towards Newt's open arms, and the gorgeous colors were fully displayed on its strangely beautiful wings and body. Its enchanting figure danced in the air and finally fell on Newt's arms. This is a winged demon, a magical animal with a danger level of XXXXX as assessed by the Ministry of Magic. It feeds on human brains, of course. It can also use the brains of other animals as a substitute. Its venom is very deadly, but according to my research, if its venom is diluted to a certain degree, it can remove some unpleasant memories. Newt raised the arm held by the winged demon and introduced it to Irina. Irina tentatively touched the wings of the winged demon with her fingers, but although the winged demon did not reject Irina's touch, it was not as enthusiastic to her as other magical animals. Instead, it lay on Newt's arm with attachment. Seeing Irina's puzzled expression, Newt explained, like many birds, the winged demon will recognize the first creature it sees as its mother after birth, and the first creature it saw when it was born was me. Irina suddenly realized and said, so it thinks you are its mother. No wonder it is so attached to you. Newt continued, although the winged demon is not a bird in the strict sense, its habits are similar to those of many birds, but not exactly the same. If we use birds as an analogy, generally speaking, late maturing birds will recognize the first creature they see as their mother, but it is similar to precocial birds. It can adapt to the surrounding environment as soon as it is born and can find food on its own. Newt introduced the various habits of the winged demon to Irina, and he talked more thoroughly than what he recorded in the textbook Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It can be seen that Newt really likes Irina, a lively and cheerful little witch who loves magical animals as much as he does. At this moment, the winged demon suddenly let go of Newt's arm, flew to the branch where it was before, and called crisply at Newt. Well, you are saying? Newt was stunned, and then his eyes showed excitement. He looked at the branch under the feet of the curled winged demon. I saw that next to the egg sac that the curled winged demon had transformed into, there was a small egg sac the size of an egg hanging upside down on the branch. Newt looked at Irina and Hagrid beside him excitedly, pointed to the egg-sized egg sac with his finger, and said excitedly, see, Irina, Rubius. That is the child of this curled winged demon. If I guess correctly, we are lucky to witness the birth of a new life today. Hearing Newt's words, Irina and Hagrid both showed joy. I didn't expect that I would encounter an unexpected surprise when I came to visit Newt's small world in the box today. Witnessing the birth of a new life, or the birth of a very rare magical animal like the curled winged demon. This is such a thing worth looking forward to. Like this good thing, the last time Irina and Hagrid witnessed the birth of a little dragon. At Newt's signal, Irina and Hagrid followed him and moved closer. However, when Hagrid also moved closer, the big curled winged demon made a threatening cry to Hagrid, and it seemed that it was unwilling to let Hagrid, or threatening big guy, get close to its unborn child. Helplessly, Hagrid had to stay 10 meters away regretfully, standing on tiptoe and looking eagerly in the direction of the branches. In the end, only Newt, who was recognized as the mother by the big curled winged demon, and Irina, who had a strong affinity for magical animals, were able to get close to the small egg sac and wait for the hatching of the little curled winged demon. Time passed bit by bit, and soon it was 6 or 7 in the afternoon, which was dinner time. Just as Newt was hesitating whether to take Irina and Hagrid back to the villa for dinner first, the small egg sac finally moved. The small egg sac gradually opened, and a pair of equally beautiful wings with gorgeous starry purple stretched out from the egg sac, and when fully unfolded, it was the size of 2 adult palms. A body of a curled winged demon as big as a squirrel appeared in the middle of the pair of wings. This curled winged demon looked very young. Its eyes seemed to be stuck together by the mucus in the egg sac, and could not open for a long time. Seeing this, the big curled winged demon flew over, gently rubbed off the mucus on the eyes of the little curled winged demon, and then flew to Newt's shoulder. Irina carefully observed this cute little curled winged demon. The little curled winged demon tried to open its eyes, as if it had not woken up yet, and looked pitiful. After a while, the eyes of the little curled winged demon finally opened completely, and the beautiful eyeballs moved. It first stared at Irina's beautiful face and ice blue eyes for a while, and then looked at Newt next to it, and the big curled winged demon on his shoulder. Seeing that its child finally opened his eyes, the big curled winged demon shouted happily, and flew over to take the little curled winged demon away. However, when the big curled winged demon hugged itself with its wings, the little curled winged demon kept struggling. After breaking free from the wings of the big curled winged demon, the little curled winged demon actually cried out crisply, then flew to Irina's head and rubbed Irina's head affectionately. Seeing this scene, the big curled winged demon seemed to have suffered a great harm and cried out sadly, "The little curled winged demon is taking you as its mother?" Newt said unexpectedly, and he was a little annoyed. He finally remembered that the first thing the little curled winged demon saw after opening its eyes was not the big curled winged demon, but Irina, who came close to it. In other words, this little curled winged demon took Irina as its mother. However, Irina is just a little wizard at Hogwarts who is about to enter the 3rd grade. It is not suitable to raise a magical animal like the curled winged demon with a danger level of XXXXX. Newt looked at the little curled winged demon on Irina's head with embarrassment. The little curled winged demon kept calling, as if shouting, "Irina is my mother. Please reward a monthly ticket." Chapter 165. Such a big suitcase. I'll give it to you. Irina gently touched the little curled winged demon on her head with her finger, and the little curled winged demon jumped onto Irina's finger and wrapped its body around it, sitting on Irina's index finger like a ring. Irina wanted to return the little curled winged demon to its mother, but the little curled winged demon refused to get off her finger, as if it was clinging to her. "Mr. Scamander, this..." Irina looked at Newt in a state of bewilderment. She didn't know what to do. Newt also looked at her helplessly. He was just busy watching the little curled winged demon being born, but he didn't notice that the curled winged demon was facing Irina. Otherwise he would at least bend the little curled winged demon's head towards the big curled winged demon first. Newt spread his hands and said, "Obviously, it thinks you are its mother." Irina remembered what Newt said when he introduced the curled winged demon before. The curled winged demon would recognize the first creature it saw as its mother, which means that it likes to be a mother? Exclamation mark. Irina's eyes widened. Irina said at a loss, "What should I do? I don't know how to raise a winged demon." If it was just to be intimate with a winged demon, then she, who likes cute little animals, would naturally be willing to do so. But if she was asked to take care of a young winged demon alone, I couldn't do it. Newt patiently explained. "Didn't I tell you just now? Winged demons are similar to precocial birds. They can adapt to the environment and find food by themselves as soon as they are born, so you don't need to take care of them too much." Of course, in order to prevent them from killing humans and sucking human brains, you need to give them enough brain marrow from animals such as chickens and ducks as food. Newt had figured it out. Since the little winged demon had already identified Irina as its mother, neither he nor the big winged demon could change this. Although it was against the laws of the Ministry of Magic to let Irina raise a winged demon, a magical animal with a dangerous level of XXXXX, just like he had been using this suitcase with a traceless extension charm to secretly raise dangerous magical animals. As long as it was not discovered by the Ministry of Magic, it would not be illegal. Raising some dangerous magical animals is already a tradition of the Scamander family. I will provide food. Mr. Scamander, you mean? Irina repeated Newt's words, and suddenly, she showed an incredible expression. Newt nodded and said, just as you thought, this curled winged demon has already determined that you are its closest person, so it is the best choice for you to take it away. I can see that you really love magical animals, and I believe you will treat it well. As he said, Newt handed a bag to Irina. In the bag was the food that Newt prepared for the newborn curled winged demon. Originally, he planned to feed the curled winged demon himself, but now, it seems that he can only give the food in this bag to Irina to feed. Irina took the bag with a feeling of uneasiness. She never thought that she just came to visit these lovely magical animals, but in the end, she accidentally kidnapped a curled winged demon as a companion. I will take good care of it, Mr. Scamander. Irina put a small bag of chicken brains in her palm and let the little curled winged demon suck it. She promised Newt seriously. After the little curled winged demon became one of the magical animals raised by Irina, Newt took Irina and Hagrid back to the villa for dinner. The little curled winged demon was very attached to Irina. Even when eating, it would sit on Irina's finger like a ring. After dinner, Newt personally went to the third floor of the villa to clean a guest room for Irina and Hagrid to rest. At night, in Irina's room, Irina sat cross-legged on the bed, while King Zyrobeo and the little curled winged demon stood in front of Irina obediently. From now on, you will be the closest relatives, so you are not allowed to fight. Irina gently nodded the heads of the three little guys and warned them. King Zyrobeo nodded quickly, and the little curled winged demon standing in the middle didn't understand what Irina said, but it could barely understand that Irina didn't want them to quarrel. Therefore, after the little curled winged demon tilted its head cutely, it stretched out its wings and hugged King Zyrobeo to show its friendliness. Irina nodded with satisfaction, then looked at the little curled winged demon hesitantly. Little curled winged demon, I will give you a name too. Hearing this, the little curled winged demon shook its head and called out twice crisply. What? You don't want a name? Then I will call you Little Curled Winged Demon. Irina felt as if she could understand the words of the curled winged demon. Perhaps this is also a special ability brought by the affinity talent of magical animals. Of course, this ability is different from Parseltongue. Harry's Parseltongue makes him hear the sound of the snake hissing, but what is transmitted to Harry's ears is human language, while when Harry speaks to the snake in human language, the sound of the snake hissing is emitted. But when Irina listened to the little curled winged demon's call, she still heard the sharp call, but she didn't know why, but she could vaguely understand what the little curled winged demon meant. The little curled winged demon nodded, called out affectionately, and threw itself into Irina's arms again. Just as Irina was about to rest with the three little guys, there was a knock on the door. Irina, are you asleep? It was Newt who was standing outside the door. He asked. Irina quickly responded, I'm not asleep yet, please come in. Newt pushed open the door and walked into the room, holding a suitcase in his hand that was exactly the same as the one fixed on the stone pillar. After seeing this suitcase, Irina's heart couldn't help but beat faster, and she seemed to have guessed something. Newt smiled and said, Irina, if you want to raise a magical animal like the curly-winged devil, you must not let the Ministry of Magic find out. This box is cast with a powerful traceless extension spell just like the suitcase we went to this afternoon. It also has a huge space inside. However, I have only opened up 3 areas where your Botricle, Niffler and little curly-winged devil can live, and you need to open up the other areas yourself. This suitcase is a gift from me, a guy who is still young at heart. Newt blinked mischievously and said. Irina took the suitcase from Newt's hand with excitement. She never thought that she would get a Newt brand magical suitcase one day. Chapter 166 Time and Taboo. Such is the power. After Irina thanked Newt very excitedly, Newt said, "According to the original arrangement between me and Rubius, you will stay here for 2 weeks. During these 2 weeks, I plan to teach you some knowledge about magical animals, especially how to raise the winged demon, which is not common and Hogwarts will not let you touch." As he said this, Newt blinked his eyes. Obviously, in Newt's opinion, Irina, who has such a strong affinity for magical animals, will never have only 3 magical animals, Kingv, Zyobeo and Zyro Winged Demon, in the future. Hearing this, Irina agreed without hesitation. Although she did not have as many magical animals as Newt, she had to prepare for a rainy day, so as not to get a winged demon, but not know how to raise it well, like this afternoon. In this way, Irina and Hagrid lived in Newt's house, and during these 2 weeks, what Irina had to do was to get up every morning to help Newt clean the homes of the magical animals and feed them. In addition, Irina would learn the habits of various magical animals in the suitcase and how to feed them with Newt every afternoon. She even learned how to communicate with them, such as the courtship dance Newt performed in front of the poisonous horned beast. Although Irina could communicate with magical animals simply, it would be beneficial for her to learn some additional knowledge. As for every night, Irina would enter the small world inside the suitcase given to her by Newt, take care of the place where Kingv, Zyobeo and Zyoingmol lived, and simply tidy up the remaining 9/10ths of the undeveloped area. During the days when Irina was learning about magical animals from Newt, Lin En was also asking Green for more alchemy knowledge. During these days of study, Lin En basically mastered the alchemy array that could affect the emotions, mind and soul of wizards. He was able to refine some simple illusion arrays, and the effect of the illusion in the array was similar to the love potion in potion science. After imparting alchemy knowledge related to soul refining to Lin En, Green was not satisfied with this. He actually began to talk about alchemy related to time. It has been mentioned before that the taboos of magic are soul and time, because both the power of soul and time can make a powerful wizard embark on a road of no return. However, this is a taboo of magic, not a taboo of alchemy. There are only 2 taboos in alchemy. One is that you can never cross the realm of God, and the other is that human alchemy is prohibited. Alchemy arrays that can affect the soul are not uncommon for the first tier alchemists in the magic world. Almost every alchemist who is famous in the magic world has mastered no less than 10 alchemy arrays that can affect the soul. However, alchemy related to time has become a taboo in the hearts of many alchemists. This is not only because of the difficulty of alchemy runes and alchemy arrays related to time, but also because it will make the alchemist lost in the long river of time and never return. Lin En vaguely remembered that in the time hole of the Department of Mysteries of the British Ministry of Magic, there was a bell-shaped crystal glass cover that showed the power of time. This bell-shaped crystal glass cover seemed to be filled with a surging, sparkling airflow, and inside the cover, there would be a small bright object like a gem floating up and down. In fact, that object was a small hummingbird, but it was not always a bird. It was bound by the power of time and kept circulating from its birth to death. At the bottom of its circulation trajectory, the bird was carrying its eggs. When it rose in the glass cover, it snapped and a hummingbird emerged and rose directly to the top of the glass cover. But as the airflow fell, the bird's feathers were dirty and wet again until it landed at the bottom of the glass cover and was locked in the egg again. This time process was repeated endlessly in the cover. This bell-shaped crystal glass cover in the time hole perfectly demonstrated to the world the power of time and the horror of time. However, even though the power of time is terrifying, there are still countless alchemists who have devoted their lives to the greatness of time alchemy. Under the research of alchemists, all chemical products that also contain the power of time came into being, that is, the time converter. Just like Green's magic forbidden staff, almost all powerful alchemical products are a combination of magic alchemy and array alchemy, and the same is true for the time converter. The time converter in the form of an hourglass is made by magic alchemy, especially the sand of time that contains infinite time power inside the hourglass. The power of the time converter to change time mostly comes from these sands of time made by magic alchemy. Whether it is the time converter or the magic forbidden staff, their biggest feature is that their power core comes from magic alchemy, and array alchemy only plays a role in strengthening and guiding them. This is why Green always believes that the formation is inseparable. If the alchemist is unwilling to share his alchemical achievements with others, then the alchemist needs to practice both the formation and the alchemical array, so that he can complete the great alchemical works alone. Teacher, can you teach me some alchemical runes related to time? Lin En asked. The time came to August 10th, which was the day Green mentioned before to visit Nicholas Flamel. But in the days when Green began to teach the alchemical knowledge related to time, Green talked about all theoretical knowledge, and he did not mention the alchemical runes and alchemical arrays related to time. This was different from Green's usual strategy when teaching him alchemy. In the past, Green always threw him a large book of related alchemical runes and alchemical arrays for him to remember in his mind, and then began to teach him alchemical knowledge. But this time, Green kept silent about these alchemical runes and alchemical arrays, which made Lin En both confused and surprised. Facing Lin's question, Green replied, although time is not a taboo in alchemy, its difficulties and dangers are obvious to all. As your teacher, I will only teach you about it, so that you can have a deep understanding of it, and the means to deal with it. As for how to use it, you still need to explore it yourself in the days to come. Hearing this, Lin had to give up with some regret. As Green said, the degree of danger of time is so dangerous that even Lin would be a little scared. Although he has not been able to learn to refine alchemical products containing the power of time, being able to master the methods to deal with it is already a pleasant surprise for him. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. Chapter 167 Sands of Time. It's almost time, we should leave, Green said after glancing at the time. Green placed his left hand on Lin's shoulder and waved his wand with his right hand to perform apparition. With the sound of gas explosion, Lin and Green appeared at the door of Nico's cabin again. Nico opened the door, smiled kindly, and invited the two to come in. Nico asked Lin and Green to sit down on the sofa, and with a wave of his wand, 3 cups of black tea appeared in front of Lin, Green and himself. Lin took the initiative to roll up the sleeve of his right arm, and then tapped his arm with the wand. A bright golden light flashed, and lines of alchemical arrays appeared on the surface of Lin's right arm skin. Then, Lin's right arm suddenly widened, and as the skin-like disguise faded, the authority of the demon god in the form of an arm guard appeared in front of everyone. Lin En once again used his magic wand to point at the center of the demon god's power, and the demon god's power split in the middle, revealing the blood-red crystal hidden in it, the magic stone that could bring wealth and longevity. Lin En was not greedy for the magic stone in his hand. He took it out neatly and handed it to Nico. Seeing this, Nico put away the philosopher's stone, then asked with a smile, Lin, don't you feel reluctant to give up the power of the philosopher's stone? Lin En said without hesitation, if I feel reluctant, so what? It originally belonged to you. You gave it to me, and I can't thank you enough. How could I not want to give it back to you, just because I covet its power? Hearing this, Nico laughed and said, good boy, good boy. However, I may need to take the philosopher's stone for a year, and I will be able to return it to you when you are on summer vacation next year. I plan to refine enough immortality potion at one time, so that Perinel and I can live to see the day when you grow up. Therefore, after I return the philosopher's stone to you next year, I will not need to use the philosopher's stone to refine the immortality potion for 100 years. Lin En said indifferently, Grandmaster, you can use it. I can protect myself without the philosopher's stone. If it was a year ago, or a year later, Lin En would not dare to make this guarantee. After all, he faced the basilisk last year, and next year he will face the resurrected Voldemort. But this year, Lin En was not worried at all that losing the philosopher's stone would significantly reduce his combat effectiveness. In the final analysis, it was because this year's final boss had nothing to do with Voldemort, and the other party was just Harry's godfather. Not to mention that black would not hurt him as a descendant of the Order of the Phoenix. Even if Lin En, who had lost the philosopher's stone, fought with black, he would not necessarily lose. After talking about the philosopher's stone, Nico asked, by the way, Lin En, how is your alchemy? To what extent have you learned it? Lin En told Nico about his current level of alchemy truthfully. After learning that Lin En had learned the theoretical knowledge of time alchemy in the past few days, Nico asked with a smile, since you have already learned the theory of time alchemy, why don't I teach you how to refine the sand of time? Anyway, I was the one who taught you the magic alchemy on behalf of Valison. Hearing this, Lin En was surprised and a little confused and said, but the teacher said that the actual operation of time alchemy is too dangerous and I have to wait until I can explore and practice it myself in the future. Nico said cheerfully, Valison was fooling you. The reason why he didn't teach you time alchemy is because he himself doesn't know it at all. Green covered his face with his hands in frustration. Teacher, please give me some face. Nico said bluntly, when I was traveling in the east, I heard an old saying, to know is to know, and not to know is not to know. If you don't know time alchemy, won't you bring Lin En to me? What's the matter? Don't I know time alchemy? Green was even more depressed. But, teacher, you haven't taught me before. That's because you don't have enough talent. I just need to teach you some theoretical knowledge to save your life. Nico said, but Lin En is more talented than you, and he is more daring than you to test the edge of danger. He has the ability to learn time alchemy. What Nico said about testing the edge of danger refers to Lin En's unauthorized practice of black magic. Of course, what Nico said seemed to be praising Lin En's spirit of adventure, but in fact, he was also scolding Lin En for not cherishing himself and contacting black magic alone. Master, are you good at time alchemy? Lin En asked curiously. Hearing Lin En's words, Nico chuckled and said, of course, I participated in the great experiment of improving the time converter in the past. Moreover, it can make wizards immortal. Do you think the Philosopher's Stone really does not contain a little power of time? Lin En suddenly realized. Yes, Nico Flamel is the greatest alchemist in the magic world. He has created the Philosopher's Stone, a magical object that can turn stones into gold and make people immortal. He should be the best in the world in any aspect of alchemy. Moreover, as Nico said, the Philosopher's Stone has the power to make people immortal. This power seems to only affect the lifespan of wizards, but it is closely related to the power of time. Otherwise, how could it extend the life of a person who should have died long ago for more than 600 years? Exclamation mark. Master, I heard that the sands of time can easily kill a wizard, turning the wizard into dry bones, or returning to a fertilized egg in a short moment, or even making the wizard forever lost in time and unable to reincarnate. Lin En said with some fear. Even he would instinctively feel afraid when facing this unknown and terrifying power. If there is no hourglass shell engraved with thousands of alchemical arrays to limit the sands of time inside, then the sands of time and the time converter alone will not only fail to allow wizards to use it to travel back to the past, but will also cause the wizards themselves to die because of the time converter. Hearing this, Nico smiled slightly and said, since I intend to teach you to refine the sand of time, there must be a secret method that can temporarily restrict and control it. Nico waved his wand and used transfiguration to transform into a rabbit. The rabbit landed on the tea table between the three people and looked around curiously. Then, Nico waved his left hand and held a grain of sand that was shining with milky white light in his hand. The milky white light on the grain of sand became dim under the suppression of the strange magic light ball in Nico's hand. Even if Nico held it with his bare hands, it was not affected by time. Then, Nico flicked his left hand lightly, and the grain of sand flew out instantly and landed on the rabbit. The strange magic light ball that had previously suppressed the grain of sand also lost its effect, and the milky white light instantly bloomed on the rabbit. The power of time descended on the rabbit, and the magic power on the rabbit was instantly exhausted, and the rabbit lost the support of magic, and turned back into the original teacup. Chapter 168, The Price of Playing with Time, a divine object forged from millions of corpses. When the grain of sand of time fell on the rabbit, Lin En keenly noticed that the strange magic light ball that suppressed the power of the sand of time before did not dissipate, but suddenly changed into another attribute in the air and continued to attach to the surface of the grain of sand of time. Moreover, the magic light ball with changed attributes did not suppress each other as before, but was tightly attached to each other like magnets with opposite sexes attracting each other, and could even complement each other. Just as Lin En was thinking, Nico took away the grain of sand of time, and then waved his wand again, and another transformation spell turned the teacup into a rabbit. Nico threw the sand of time at the rabbit in the same way, and Lin En could sense that the strange magic light ball had changed its attributes again and was tightly attached to the sand of time. However, although the magic light ball after the change of attributes this time looked the same as last time, Lin En clearly understood that this magic light ball now had another brand new attribute. The sand of time fell on the rabbit, allowing the power of time to descend on the rabbit again. Under the influence of time, the rabbit turned back into a teacup, but unlike last time, the magic power that originally supported the rabbit's transformation was not exhausted, but left the rabbit's body and turned into the purest magic power again. You should have seen it, tell me. Nico took back the sand of time and looked at Lin En with a smile. Lin En said thoughtfully, I can feel that the magic light ball you attached to the sands of time just now has 3 different properties. If I guessed correctly, the effects of these 3 properties are to suppress the power of the sands of time so that it cannot take effect, fix the power of the sands of time in fast forward time, and fix the power of the sands of time in reverse time. Very good. Nico applauded Lin En happily. You are right. My secret method can make the time power full of uncertainty no longer unknown and uncontrollable, but fixed, and become an existence that can be used by us. As Nico Flamel said, the property of the first magic light ball of Nico's secret method just now can suppress the power of the sands of time, so that it will not backfire on the alchemist himself due to the alchemist's own careless contact. The properties of the latter 2 magic light balls can make the time changes of the sands of time descending on the contactor fixed, and can rely on the alchemist's will to fast forward or rewind, so that it is no longer full of uncertainty. This discovery made Lin En extremely surprised. He couldn't wait to ask, then, Master, don't you have to pay any price to use this power? Hearing this, Nico's smile became even brighter. Nico said, I'm very happy that you can ask me the price of borrowing this power instead of rushing to learn it. In fact, it does cost a lot to use this power. For example, Lin En asked. Nico said lightly, every time you refine a sand of time, you need to consume 10 years of the life of the alchemist or other sacrifice. Moreover, such a sand of time can only be used 3 times, and it will be completely ineffective unless the alchemist or sacrifice is willing to pay another 10 years of life to recharge it. Hearing Nico's words, Lin En couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. He didn't expect that refining a sand of time would cost such a huge price, and it could only be used 3 times. What touched Lin En even more was that Nico would rather consume 1/3 of the sand of time to demonstrate the power of the sand of time to him. Seeing Lin En's panic, Nico said with a smile, don't worry, I won't let you waste your life. The Philosopher's Stone itself contains this power. You can let the sands of time absorb the power of the Philosopher's Stone to replace your lifespan. Lin En asked in confusion, where does the power in the Philosopher's Stone come from? Nico chuckled, but his next words made Lin En feel like he was falling into an ice cave, and even his blood seemed to freeze. In the past 600 years, both the magic world and the world of ordinary people have been at war. It is not difficult for me to get some lifespan from those who are about to die on the battlefield. This Philosopher's Stone is made of the bones of millions of dying people. Nico said indifferently. Although Nico said that he took the lifespan from those who were fatally injured and about to die, Lin En believed that a portion of the millions of corpses was definitely taken by Nico himself. Even though Nico now looked kind, like a goody-goody, Lin En knew that a real goody-goody could not live to be over 600 years old, even if he had a magical object like the Philosopher's Stone. After all, the greed of human hearts can even destroy the entire world. I understand. Master, please teach me how to refine the sands of time. Lin En said solemnly. Nico said cheerfully, no problem. If I remember correctly, you and Wallison will leave in a week, right? I will try my best to teach you how to refine the sands of time within a week. So, in the next week, Lin En followed Nico carefully to learn how to refine the sands of time. The refining of the sands of time is definitely the most difficult one among all the alchemy techniques that Lin En has come into contact with so far. However, the biggest advantage of refining the sand of time is that Lin En can refine it anytime and anywhere without being constrained by the materials. After all, the only substantial material of the sand of time is a grain of sand that can be found everywhere, and the rest of the materials of the sand of time, except for the 10-year lifespan of humans, are very abstract time powers extracted from nothingness. In the experiment of refining the sand of time, Lin En failed countless times, and the most serious one even caused him to trigger a small time turbulence in the laboratory. Fortunately, Nico used the secret method to control his sand of time in time to wipe it out, which saved Lin En's life. And this also made Lin En fully aware of the horror of time alchemy. On the third to last day of this week, Lin En finally succeeded in refining a sand of time that belonged to him, and the price of the 10-year lifespan was naturally provided by Nico taking out the Philosopher's Stone. Since the sand of time has been successfully refined, in the last 2 days, Lin En followed Nico to learn the secret method that can control the sand of time, and gained the ability to control the sand of time. With the Philosopher's Stone, Lin En was not worried about the power of time contained in the sands of time being consumed by him. He used the sands of time 3 times when trying the secret method. After using it, Nico took out the Philosopher's Stone to recharge it. In addition, Lin En found that when he used the sands of time, his energy would be consumed very quickly, and his head would become groggy instantly after using the sands of time. After testing, Lin En speculated that he could use the sands of time 3 times a day, and if it exceeded 3 times, he would faint directly due to overwork. Please reward and monthly tickets. Chapter 169 Lin En's Strangeness. Lin En guessed that the degree of energy consumption of using the sands of time was related to the strength of his soul. In other words, if Lin En could become stronger and stronger in the future, the upper limit of the number of times Lin En could use the sands of time every day would also increase. In the final analysis, the sands of time could only be used as Lin En's trump card at present, because of the price that needed to be paid for using it, and could not become Lin En's regular means of combat. Even before Lin En retrieved the Philosopher's Stone next year, he could only use the sands of time 3 times in total. Soon, it was the day for Lin En to say goodbye to Nico and Green. Now he has mastered all the theoretical knowledge about time alchemy and the magic world so far, and has learned the refining techniques of the sands of time and the special secrets of using the sands of time to fight. It can be said that after this trip to France, Lin En's strength has been greatly increased. If he were to fight the basilisk again, even if he did not use the fiend Fi, the sands of time in his hand alone would be enough to make the basilisk lose most of its combat power. At this time, someone will ask, since the power of time can make a life return to before birth or directly age and die, why does the sand of time only make the basilisk lose most of its combat power? In fact, the reason why the basilisk loses most of its combat power instead of killing it directly is because the basilisk itself is a man-made magical animal with a long lifespan, and the basilisk itself has lived for thousands of years. Even though the sand of time can affect time, the time power it contains also has an upper limit, that is, 100 years. The sand of time consumes 1/3 of the time power, which can only make the time of the affected target fast forward or rewind 100 years. The basilisk has lived for 1,000 years, and its remaining lifespan is also more than 1,000 years. Even if the sand of time falls on it, the time power it contains, whether it makes the time of the basilisk go forward or rewind, cannot reach the point of killing it. At best, it only makes the basilisk's physical condition change instantly to 100 years ago, or 100 years later, making it difficult for the basilisk to fight smoothly, because it is not adapted to its own body. Teacher, master, see you next year. Lin held a cross-border portkey in the shape of a porcelain cup in his hand, and said goodbye to Green and Nico. A flash of light passed by, and Lin's body and the teacup twisted in the air and disappeared. Before long, Lin appeared at the entrance of Rao Manor. Lin walked into the manor quickly and returned to Rao Castle. Are you back? Seeing Lin coming back, Rowena smiled and nodded. Lin nodded, and he simply said that he had met with his teacher Green and Master Nico Flamel. However, he did not tell his mother about his research on the time that wizards called taboo in France, and about his visit to Lefebvre Valley to find a dark wizard to practice the 3 unforgivable curses, so as not to worry about him. It is now August 17th, and in the previous owl letter call with the Weirlight twins, he and the other party agreed to visit the burrow for a few days on August 20th. The same is true for Irina. In addition, Lin and Irina also agreed to go to Diagon Alley on August 19th to buy textbooks for the next semester. During this day and a half, Lin En relaxed well. He slept from the afternoon of August 17th to the evening of August 18th. This also shows how tired Lin En was. After all, in the past month, Lin En either went to Lefebvre to practice the unforgivable curse, or studied time alchemy in the laboratory. It is conceivable how tense his nerves were. When Lin En unsealed from the quilt, he felt a lot more comfortable. The resentment accumulated when practicing the unforgivable curse in Lefebvre and the depression of being in the alchemy laboratory all day long were slightly relieved with this feeling. After waking up, Lin En saw that the sky outside the window had completely darkened. He estimated that he would not be able to sleep, so he simply got up and went downstairs. After enjoying the dinner made by the house elf Gale, he walked out of the Roll Manor alone. Lin En walked aimlessly on the streets of England. Although the Muggle world was still brightly lit at night, the corners of the streets were still dark. The tents of homeless people and the malicious eyes at the corners made it impossible for him to feel the tranquility and beauty of the night shopping in his previous life. Lin En sighed softly. After seeing the surrounding environment, a layer of haze surged into his heart. He no longer had the desire to wander around. Lin En turned and left, intending to find an empty alley and summon Gale to take him back. However, when Lin En walked into a closed alley, he noticed a faint footstep following him. He turned around quickly, but when he saw the appearance of the stalker, he, who was originally very vigilant, curled his lips in boredom. This was an adult male, holding a silver fruit knife in his hand. Obviously, this was just an ordinary street thug, a muggle without any magical power. Hand over all your pounds, kid. The street thug said viciously, but before he could finish, his voice stopped abruptly. The camera returned to the previous street. The homeless people on the street only saw a faint green light flashing in the alley, and then silence fell in the alley. When the homeless people carefully went to explore the alley, they were horrified to see that a thug with a fruit knife in his hand fell to the ground. He had no wounds on his body, but no signs of life, and the boy who walked into the alley under their gaze before was gone. The next day, outside the leaky cauldron, two figures came here one after the other. Lin En, I haven't seen you for a month and a half. I don't know why you seem to be much more haggard. Irina looked at Lin En worriedly and said. Lin En shook his head and said in a brisk tone, you must have seen it wrong, or maybe I stayed up all night last night. After returning to Row Manor last night, he lay on the lawn in his back garden all night and watched the stars all night. It's not wrong to say that he stayed up all night. Irina was still a little worried. In her opinion, Lin En's eyes with a few bloodshot eyes were no different from those dark wizards in Nocturne Alley whose minds were corroded by black magic. Let's go. Didn't we say we were going to Diagon Alley to buy textbooks? Lin En walked towards the leaky cauldron. Irina thought about it and finally followed him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170. I want to taste your pain. Walking through the leaky cauldron, walking on the streets of Diagon Alley, Lin En noticed Irina following behind him, who seemed to be hesitant to speak. He frowned, stopped, and asked, what's wrong? Irina hesitated for a moment and said what she thought. Hearing Irina say that he looked a bit like a dark wizard, Lin En was stunned for a moment, then showed a look of realization, took out a crystal pendant from his pocket, and put it on his neck. In the past, when practicing the unforgivable curse in Lefebvre Alley, Green was watching and taking various measures to reduce the influence of the unforgivable curse on him. However, last night, when he was depressed, he forgot Green's warning and used the unforgivable curse on the muggle who raised a knife to hurt him, and after returning, he forgot to bring Kinkson to calm his emotions. This is why he appeared in front of Irina, because he was affected by the unforgivable curse and looked haggard. Sure enough, people are always prone to impulsive behavior when they are under too much pressure. Although the muggle wanted to kill him and rob him, killing a muggle who was defenseless to them, the wizards, was not Lin En's style. Of course, Lin En did not sympathize with the muggle who died because of his emotional outburst. Even with the pure heart and the patroness charm to cleanse his mind over and over again, the unforgivable curse still made some subtle changes in Lin En's character. Lin En smiled bitterly. Fortunately, he had discovered that he was affected, and it was not too late for him to make up for it now. You guessed right, I was indeed affected by some black magic. Thank you for reminding me. Lin En thanked Irina. After wearing the pure heart, Lin En's eyes, which were originally covered with a layer of haze, became clear again. And the few bloodshot eyes that appeared in his eyes before have now disappeared. After Lin En returned to normal, the two began to buy textbooks for the next year of Hogwarts. When Lin En and Irina were going to buy the materials needed for the herbal medicine class, Irina seemed to have thought of something. She said to Lin En happily, by the way, Lin En, the Chinese biting cabbage and poisonous tentacles that I planted in the magic plant bag you gave me last time are all mature. Half a week ago, when Irina went to check the magic plants in the magic plant bag, she found that the 5 Chinese biting cabbages and 5 poisonous tentacles that were planted in it last time were all mature. This also means that Irina has another conventional means of fighting. After all, these magic plants are not disposable. After she throws the Chinese biting cabbage to tear the enemy into pieces, she can recycle it and replant it in the magic plant bag. Unless the magic plant thrown out to fight is broken by the enemy's magic. Lin En said happily, then why don't we go to Nocturne Alley to find a practice subject for you to test the power of these 2 magic plants? Hearing this, Irina subconsciously took 2 steps back, and a hint of horror appeared in her eyes when she looked at Lin En. Lin, what's wrong with you? You're not the kind of person who would test magic on wizards. Don't scare me, Irina said with some fear. She felt that the boy in front of her had changed after not seeing him for a summer vacation, and she felt unfamiliar. Lin was stunned again, and then he remembered that Nocturne Alley in the UK was no worse than Le Fay in France. The dark wizards living in Le Fay in France were all unforgivable. Even if Lin killed them 1,000 times, he would not have any psychological burden. But Nocturne Alley in the UK was different. Although Nocturne Alley was known as the gathering place for dark wizards in the UK, in fact, not all those living in Nocturne Alley were dark wizards. There were also some unlucky guys who could not make it and had nowhere to go. They had to live in Nocturne Alley when they had no choice. Lin realized that he was affected by the unforgivable curse again. Even though he wore the pure heart around his neck, he had experienced those days of practicing the unforgivable curse, and many subconscious choices were ingrained in his mind. Expecto Patronus. Lin En slowly exhaled a breath of foul air, waved the wand in his hand, and chanted the spell. A silver wolf emitting silver white light appeared beside Lin En amid the exclamations of the surrounding wizards. It circled Lin En twice and merged into Lin En's body. Feeling that he was wrapped in a joyful emotion, Lin En's expression also became soft. Sorry, Irina, I scared you. Let's find a place to sit down later. I will tell you what happened in the summer vacation, including why I became like that just now. How about it? Lin En looked at the girl beside him with soft eyes. Irina hesitated for a moment and nodded. After seeing the patroness that appeared beside Lin En, she was sure that Lin En was not a dark wizard in disguise. Although she didn't know why Lin En had changed so much, she didn't mind listening to the story of the boy who had protected her. Soon, the two bought everything on the list, and they found a corner of the coffee shop to sit down. Lin En took a sip of the coffee in his hand. He hesitated for a while, and told Irina about how he secretly learned black magic during the summer vacation, and practiced the unforgivable curse in Le Fay, France. So that's how it is. Irina's clear eyes seemed to be rippling with water. Although Lin En didn't explain it directly, she could guess from his words that Lin En learned these black magics in order to have enough strength to protect himself in the future. Touching taboos for the sake of protection. It seems quite romantic. Irina hesitated for a while, and her expression gradually became firm. She whispered and tried. Lin En, those black magics, including the fiery curse and the 3 unforgivable curses, can you teach me? If she could learn those powerful magics, maybe she would no longer need to let others worry about her. But these black magics do affect the mind of wizards. You should have seen how I look just now. Lin En was not surprised that she would make such a choice, just like he did without hesitation at the beginning. But he hoped she understood that black magic was not as simple as she thought. For example, if he did not have absolute control over fire, he would have been attacked by the fiend Defy when he first released it. But, the girl bit her lip. I want to experience the pain and test you went through before. It was just the erosion of black magic. Since Lin En could survive it, it was nothing more than walking the path Lin En had walked, so why couldn't she? Exclamation mark. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. Chapter 171 The Silver Fox Guardian and the Inseparable Him. Hearing Irina's words, Lin En's heart softened. He whispered, I can teach you those black magics, but I don't want you to be like me and touch them without any preparation. Before learning those black magics, you must first learn the Patronus charm. During the days of practicing the unforgivable curses, Lin En became more and more aware of the importance of the Patronus charm, which can take away the hostility of wizards and fill the wizard's body with happy emotions. It can be said that without the Patronus charm, even if Lin En can use the pure heart to keep himself calm, his heart will become darker under the strong negative impact of the unforgivable curses. Therefore, if Irina can master the Patronus charm before learning these black magics, then she can take fewer unnecessary detours than him. Hearing this, Irina nodded. She naturally understood that Lin En's request was for her own good, not to mention that mastering the Patronus charm would definitely be beneficial to what they would encounter in the next school year. After all, the Patronus charm is the only spell that is generally recognized by the magic world to repel dementors. By the way, Lin, I just saw your physical Patronus. Is it a wolf? Irina asked curiously. Lin smiled and said, yes, a silver wolf. You should still remember the spell of the Patronus, right? Irina said as a matter of course. Well, expecto Patronus, I still remember this. Lin glanced at the surrounding environment and said, in fact, the Patronus is not as difficult as people think. It only requires you to recite the spell and have enough happy emotions. As long as the emotions are in place, you can easily release the Patronus even without making specific gestures. However, the coffee shop is not suitable for you to practice the Patronus. How about coming to my house? Irina thought about it and agreed. After leaving the coffee shop, Irina first went to buy some brains of chickens, ducks, and geese as dinner for the little curled winged demon, and then followed Lin to the Roll Manor. The two of them found Gale standing not far from the entrance of Diagon Alley and came to the Roll Manor through Gale's apparition. Since it was not the first time that Irina came to visit Rao Manor, Gale did not apparate to the entrance of Rao Manor like last time, but came directly to the outside of Rao Castle. Lin En took Irina to meet Rao, and then took her directly to the training ground behind the castle. Try it first. Lin En showed Irina the Patronus charm with standard gestures, and then said to Irina, although the gestures of casting spells can be ignored when there is enough joy, it is better to follow the standard when using the Patronus charm for the first time. Irina gently waved the wand in her hand, and the beautiful memory of lying on the sofa and stroking the cat in her arms in her previous life flooded into her mind, and the joyful mood surged like a tide. Expecto Patronus, Irina shouted, and the silver white light spewed out from the wand and filled Irina's body. The silver white light became more and more condensed, but after a few minutes, this group of silver white light did not show any signs of condensing into a solid body for a long time. Focus and think about all the things that make you happy, Lin En encouraged her. Irina nodded slightly, closed her beautiful eyes, and began to recall her beautiful memories. The beautiful memories of her previous life can make her summon a rich silver white light ball. So what about the beautiful memories of this life? Exclamation mark. Received the admission notice from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and learned that she had traveled to the magical world of Harry Potter, became friends with the characters she liked in the original book, and integrated into this small group. Or, learned that Senior Aluoa, who had been kind to her many times, was her fellow countryman, so that she had a fellow countryman in this strange world. Thinking of this, the silver white light in front of Irina seemed to be constantly condensing in one direction, and the silver white cocoon wrapped the body inside, and the Patronus that was about to take shape was nurtured in this silver white cocoon. At this time, a beautiful picture jumped into Irina's mind. The boy with a bit of bookish hair sat quietly on the hospital bed, holding a heavy book that she had never seen before. The boy found her awake and smiled at her. His dark red eyes gently looked at her profile. Don't worry, I'm here. The boy's gentle but firm voice seemed to ring in her ears again. Warm and happy emotions filled her chest in an instant, and an endless stream of silver white light gushed out from the top of the magic wand and merged into the silver white cocoon. Then, the silver white cocoon broke and dissipated, revealing the physical patroness that had already taken shape inside. This was a little silver white fox. It seemed a little shy. It carefully looked around and then came to Irina's feet meekly, rubbing her calves and making a comfortable humming sound. Congratulations, Irina. Lin En clapped his hands with a smile on his face. He was not surprised that Irina could release the physical patroness at once. After all, he did it at the beginning. Besides, he never thought that Irina's talent would be weaker than his. Thank you, Lin. Irina's ice blue eyes seemed to be sparkling with water. She knew that she could perfectly release the physical patroness, absolutely inseparable from the boy in front of her. Lin smiled and said, "Don't thank me, it's all your own hard work. Since you have learned the patroness spell, let's start to learn black magic, right?" Hearing this, Irina's eyes lit up, and she nodded repeatedly. Lin turned around and walked towards the direction of the castle. His voice came over, "Come with me, we have to learn the theoretical knowledge of black magic first, and then start to practice." Irina hurriedly followed. Lin led Irina to the 4th floor of Roll Castle, where the black magic books are still placed. Lin sorted these black magic books from small to large, regardless of the difficulty of casting, only based on their threat and the size of the backlash to the wizard, and then handed them to Irina. Lin En hoped that Irina could learn black magic step by step, starting from the ones that would have less backlash on herself, instead of learning whatever she saw in a disorganized way, like he did at the beginning. Irina naturally accepted Lin En's arrangement with pleasure. The theoretical knowledge of these black magics is actually not difficult. After all, most black magics have a common feature, that is, they are powerful and easy to cast. If these black magics are more difficult to cast than white magics, but their power is weaker than white magics, then I'm afraid that only fools would learn black magic. Isn't the reason why those black wizards admire black magic because black magic allows them to gain powerful power at a very low cost? Exclamation mark. Chapter 172. Visiting the Burrow. Most of the black magic theories recorded in the books were nonsense, and were the ecstasy that the authors used to seduce readers into falling into the abyss of black magic. What Irina really needed to pay attention to were only the spells, gestures, and effects of these black magic. Among this large stack of black magic books and materials, the only ones that were really worth Irina's careful reading were probably the Fiery Curse and the 3 Unforgivable Curses. In this way, Irina spent a night on the 4th floor of Rao Castle, and even Lin brought her dinner from downstairs. It was not until 1 o'clock in the morning that Irina finished reading all the black magic theories, and she walked tiredly to the guest room that Lin had prepared for her to rest. The next day. This day was the day when Lin and Irina planned to visit the Weirlie family at the Burrow. Lin and Irina both got up very early. After enjoying breakfast, they prepared to go to the Burrow through the Flu network in the living room fireplace. This time they were visiting someone else's home, so it was obviously not polite to let the house elf Gale take them to someone else's home with a bang. Lin grabbed a handful of flu powder from an ashtray filled with flu powder, and then handed the ashtray to Irina. Lin came to the fireplace, and a green flame suddenly ignited in the fireplace. The Burrow. Lin walked into the fireplace, and he read out the Weirlie family's home address in a somewhat unfamiliar way, and sprinkled the flu powder in his hand. With the house elf Gale around, Lin had very few opportunities to use the flu network, so Lin was not very skilled in using flu powder. Even Lin, who was from a pure blood family, was like this, not to mention Irina, who was born in a muggle family. Irina had never used flu powder before. Since receiving the admission letter from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, this was Irina's first time to complete a journey through the flu network, and her memory of flu powder was still completely stuck in the original book and the movie. Seeing Lin disappear in the green flames, Irina swallowed her saliva and then walked into the fireplace. She prayed in her heart that she could speak clearly, at least not like Harry. Irina closed her eyes, sprinkled the flu powder in her hand, and whispered, "The Burrow." The flames suddenly jumped up, and Irina felt that the scene in front of her was moving very fast. The next moment, she stumbled out of a fireplace. Just when she was about to fall, a pair of hands supported her. Be careful to keep your balance when you come out of the flu network. Lin retracted his hands and said to Irina. Although he himself had not used the flu network many times, he at least remembered it, so he would not fall out when he came out of the flu network. Ah, Irina. Welcome to our home. At this time, a surprised voice came from not far away. Irina looked closely and found that Ron was standing next to the table with a smile on his face. The Weasley couple and the Weasley twins were also standing there. At the staircase of the burrow, Irina also saw Percy, the Gryffindor prefect, and Ginny, the youngest girl of the Weasley family. Ginny seemed to be a little afraid of Lin. When she found Lin was there, she timidly shrank behind Percy. Welcome, Lin and Irina, Mrs. Weasley said to them happily. Lin and Irina bowed to Mr. Weasley and Mrs. Weasley at the same time, and said in unison, nice to meet you. Mrs. Weasley smiled gently and said, good children. Have you had breakfast? Lin said, yes, ma'am. Irina and I had breakfast together at Rogue Castle. Together? Mrs. Weasley seemed a little surprised. Lin explained, I invited Irina to visit my home yesterday and discussed the Patronus charm with her. However, it was too late after we discussed the Patronus charm, so she stayed in my guest room for one night. Mrs. Weasley nodded in understanding. Mr. Weasley asked curiously, Patronus charm? Are you learning the Patronus charm? Lin nodded, chanted the spell, waved his wand, and the silver wolf appeared in front of everyone. The Patronus charm was not something he needed to hide. First, the Patronus charm was an auxiliary function, and it could only be regarded as his regular means. It could only be used in a very limited number of situations in battle, and could not serve as a trump card. Second, being able to release a Patronus was a symbol of a righteous and kind wizard in most cases. Showing his ability to release a Patronus could easily make Lin get a higher impression score in front of many respected wizards, which was 100 benefits for him. A physical Patronus. It's incredible. It should be a wolf, right? Mr. Weasley exclaimed. He did not expect that Lin, a little wizard in the 4th grade, could release a physical Patronus so smoothly. Irina, can you release a Patronus? At this time, Ron looked at Irina with great interest. He hoped that his good friend could beat that Slytherin guy. Although Ron was no longer hostile to Lin as he was at the beginning after the past 2 years, his discrimination against Slytherin was not reduced at all. In his eyes, the righteous Gryffindor should defeat the evil Slytherin. Hearing Ron's words, Irina didn't think much. She also chanted the spell and waved the wand in her hand. A cute silver fox appeared at Irina's feet. The silver fox, which was originally a little socially anxious, showed a look of surprise after seeing the silver wolf not far away. Then it came to the silver wolf, sniffed it here and there, and kept looking at the silver wolf. No one paid much attention to the strange behavior of the silver fox. They just thought it was a mutual appreciation between the Patronuses. They were more interested in the fact that Irina, a little witch in the 3rd grade, could perfectly release a physical Patronus. Mr. Weasley clapped his hands and said, that's amazing, Lin and Irina. Can you tell me where you learned the Patronus charm from? Lin smiled and said, Uncle Weasley, you are too kind. I learned the Patronus charm from my teacher, you know, the famous French alchemist Wallace and Green. Hearing Lin call him uncle, Mr. Weasley was even happier and turned his eyes to Irina. My Patronus charm was taught to me by Lin. His Patronus charm is very powerful, and he teaches very well. Irina smiled sweetly and said so. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. Chapter 173 Poor Harry and Ron's New Wand. Hearing Irina's words, everyone looked at Lin En with surprise, and even Ron showed an incredible look. Just now, when Irina released a Patronus that was not weaker than Lin En's, Ron was still secretly happy that his big sister could beat the Slytherin senior. But before he could be happy for 2 seconds, he learned that Irina's Patronus charm was taught by Lin En. It is conceivable how big the psychological impact on Ron was. I didn't expect you to teach people spells. Do you plan to stay in Hogwarts and be a professor in the future? Mr. Weasley exclaimed, and then asked curiously. Lin En chuckled. He shrugged and said, it's still uncertain. After all, that's a few years later. Mr. Weasley nodded. Indeed, it was too early to ask Lin En about his future plans at this time. After all, the career guidance of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry was only carried out when the young wizards were in the 5th grade, before the OWL exam. At the warm invitation of the Weasley's, Lin and Irina agreed to stay at the Burrow until the start of the school term, and Mrs. Weasley asked Fred and George to vacate 2 empty rooms for them. Of course, the Burrow didn't have that many rooms, so Mrs. Weasley had to let Ron and Percy sleep in the same room, and let Ginny sleep in the same room with her. In the following days, Lin and Irina lived with the Weasleys as guests in the Burrow. In these days of getting a long day and night, Lin also became more familiar with the other Weasleys, except the Weasley twins. And Ginny was no longer as afraid of Lin as she was at the beginning. She knew that Lin would not hurt her. However, Lin and Irina did not stay in the Burrow all day. Every afternoon, Lin would take Irina out to play, but actually return to the training ground of Rao Manor to lead her to practice those black magic. In this more than a week of practice, Irina has been able to skillfully release black magic, except the 3 unforgivable curses and the fiery curse. In order to ensure that Irina's mind is not eroded by black magic, even if the black magic she uses is not the unforgivable curse, which is a black magic with extremely serious backlash, Lin will put on the pure heart for her as soon as she casts the spell. Moreover, after taking off the pure heart, Lin will also ask Irina to release the Patronus charm 3 times before allowing her to practice the next black magic. Under Lin's meticulous protection, Irina did not change her mind like Lin after learning these black magics, but was still as innocent and kind as before she learned black magic. Soon, time came to the penultimate day before school started. On this day, Hermione also came to the Burrow as a guest. Not only that, Mr. Weasley also brought some not so good news. I learned from my colleagues in the ministry that Harry was warned by the Ministry of Magic because he inflated his muggle aunt, violating the rule that young wizards are not allowed to use magic outside. And he has been living in the leaky cauldron for the past few days, Mr. Weasley said to everyone. Hearing this, Hermione, Fred, George and Ron subconsciously glanced at Lin and Irina. You know, the 2 who block the Ministry of Magic's traces through Lin's alchemy are probably the only 2 underage wizards in this house who can cast magic at will. Oh, poor Harry, Irina said sympathetically. What? Hermione exclaimed, showing a worried look. Will Harry be expelled? Mr. Weasley shook his head and said, fortunately, Minister Fudge allowed Harry to continue studying at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, but if he violates the rules and casts spells outside the school again, he may really be expelled. Ron poked his head out. Dad, you said Harry is in the leaky cauldron now, right? Why don't we go find him? At this time, Mrs. Weasley came down the stairs and said seriously, no, it's too late today. But I agree that you go to Diagon Alley together tomorrow, and I will buy you the textbooks you will use after school starts the day after tomorrow, and buy Ron a new wand by the way. After learning that he was about to get a brand new wand, Ron cheered happily. Harry, who lived in the leaky cauldron, had long been forgotten by him. So, after agreeing on the time and place to meet the next day, Hermione went home first. Lin and Irina went upstairs to rest after enjoying dinner at the Burrow. The next morning, Lin and Irina followed the Weasley family to Diagon Alley, and Hermione had been waiting here for a long time. Originally, Hermione wanted to visit Harry at the leaky cauldron, but Ron was eager to get a new wand, so they had to go to Ollivander's wand shop with Ron to buy a new wand for him. Not long after, Mr. Ollivander picked out a wand that was very suitable for Ron. It was a 14-inch willow wand, and the core of this willow wand was a unicorn's tail hair. According to Mr. Ollivander, this is a wand suitable for innocent and kind-hearted wizards. After buying the new wand, everyone simply went to buy textbooks and some magic materials for class. Of course, Lin and Irina had already purchased everything they needed for the next year on August 19th, so they just accompanied Hermione and the 4 Weasleys to buy textbooks and magic materials. The process of purchasing magic materials went very smoothly, but they encountered 2 small problems when purchasing textbooks. The first small problem was that Hermione had chosen all the elective courses, so the clerk at Flourish and Blot's bookstore spent a lot of time just looking for textbooks for Hermione. The second small problem was that Hagrid, who was about to take over as the Professor of Care of Magical Creatures this year, chose Monster Book of Monsters as the textbook. You know, before the Monster Book of Monsters was calmed down in the right way, these Monster Book of Monsters were like mad beasts. Not only would they bite the hands of the clerks, but they would also kill each other with other Monster Book of Monsters locked in cages, biting each other into tatters, and letting broken pieces of paper fly everywhere. After learning that Hermione and Ron each needed a Monster Book of Monsters, the clerk seemed to be about to cry. Seeing this, Irina volunteered to take the Monster Book of Monsters from the cage. She followed the method Hagrid taught her to tame these books during the days when she was a guest at Newt's house, and stroked down along the spine of the Monster Book of Monsters. The Monster Book of Monsters, which had originally wanted to bite Irina's arm, suddenly trembled in Irina's hand, and then calmed down, and was obediently taken out and put away by Irina. Chapter 174. He is really good to Irina. Irina quickly took out 2 copies of Monster Books of Monsters and handed them to Hermione and Ron respectively. The clerk next to her looked at Irina as if she was looking at a savior and was so moved that she seemed to be about to cry in the next second. After buying the textbooks, Hermione and Ron planned to visit Harry at the Leaky Cauldron. Irina obviously had the same intention, and she even dragged Lin with her. As for the rest of the Weasley family, they planned to stroll around Diagon Alley before going to the Leaky Cauldron. When the 4 of them arrived at the door of Florin Fosco's ice cream shop, they saw Harry walking out of the entrance to Diagon Alley from the Leaky Cauldron. Harry! Harry! Hermione and Ron waved to Harry, attracting Harry's attention. Seeing Hermione, Ron and Irina, Harry couldn't help but smile, and he walked over and sat down. Harry asked curiously, "How did you know I lived in the Leaky Cauldron?" "My dad told me," Ron said. Hermione's face was very serious. She asked worriedly, "Harry, did you really blow up your aunt?" "I didn't mean to," Harry said helplessly. "I just couldn't control myself for a moment." Irina said sympathetically, "Harry, you are so unlucky to have such a relative." Harry shrugged. "Who said it wasn't?" "This is not a joke," Hermione said seriously. "To be honest, I'm surprised that you weren't expelled, Harry." "I wondered too," Harry admitted, "let alone expulsion. I thought you would be arrested." As he said that, Harry looked at Ron. "Your father doesn't know why Fudge let me go, right?" Harry inquired. "Don't forget, you are the savior. Fudge is useless in other aspects, but he spared no effort in protecting his position as Minister of Magic. If he expelled you, the savior, the public opinion alone would be enough to make him suffer." At this moment, Lin walked out of Florin Fosco's ice cream shop, and he said with a chuckle. Hearing this, Harry couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He didn't expect Lin to say this so bluntly. Irina nodded in agreement. "Yes, but Harry, don't think that Fudge will always treat you well because of your identity as the savior. Once you are no longer useful to him, or even hinder his way, he will be the first to send you to hell." Harry couldn't help but shudder. "Well said." Lin smiled and walked over, putting a cup of strawberry ice cream in Irina's hand. Seeing the strawberry ice cream in her hand, Irina's eyes lit up. She smiled at Lin, who was eating another ice cream, and then happily ate the strawberry ice cream in her hand. Seeing this scene, Harry and the other 2 felt very envious. This Slytherin senior is really good to Irina. By the way, we will all stay at the Leaky Cauldron tonight, and we can go to King's Cross Station together tomorrow, Ron suddenly said to Harry. The Weasley family planned to stay at the Leaky Cauldron tonight, and Lin and Irina, who were originally guests at the Burrow, also planned to stay at the Leaky Cauldron for one night and go to King's Cross Station with everyone tomorrow. To this end, Lin had asked the house elf Gale to deliver his luggage to the room that had been prepared in advance at the Leaky Cauldron one day in advance. In addition, Hermione was also staying at the Leaky Cauldron tonight. She nodded happily and said, "Dad and Mom sent me here this morning, along with everything I need for Hogwarts Castle." Harry was very happy to hear that his friends would stay at the Leaky Cauldron with him tonight and go to King's Cross Station together tomorrow. After talking about where to stay, Ron showed Harry his new wand. Harry was also happy that Ron could get his own new wand. After talking about the textbooks Hermione bought at Flourish and Blotts, Harry was shocked that Hermione had chosen so many courses. "My birthday is in September. Dad and Mom gave me some money to buy myself a birthday present in advance. Actually, I really want an owl. You see, Harry has Hedwig, Ron has Errol, and Irina also has emergency food. Hermione suddenly mentioned buying an owl. She planned to buy an owl of her own. Hearing Hermione mention Errol, Ron shook his head and said, I don't have an owl. Errol is the owl of the whole family. I only have Scabbers. As he said that, Ron took out his mouse Scabbers from his pocket. That is, Peter Pettigrew, who was disguised as an animagus in the form of mouse. I want to take it for a checkup. Ron put Scabbers on the table. It seems that it is not acclimatized to Egypt. During this summer vacation, Lin went to Nicholas Flamel's cottage in France, Irina went to Newt Scamander's house, and the Weasley family won the lottery and went on a family trip to Egypt. Even Hermione went out with her parents and her skin was a little tanned when she came back. I'm afraid that this summer, Harry will be locked up at home and can't go anywhere. There's a magical animal shop over there. You can see what they can do to Scabbers, and Hermione can buy her owl. Harry pointed to a shop across the street and said so. As the only place Harry went to this summer, that was not the Dursleys' house. Harry had already looked at all the shops in Diagon Alley. So, everyone came to the magical animal shop that Harry mentioned. To be honest, the environment of this magical animal shop was much worse than the EI or owl shop that Lin and Irina went to when they bought emergency food. The place inside this magical animal shop was very small, and the walls were densely hung with cages. There was a bad smell in the air, and the sound was noisy, because the guys in the cages were all squeaking, chirping, or making hissing sounds. Everyone could see two huge purple toads sitting there wolfing down dead blowflies, drooling. A terrifyingly large tortoise sat by the window, its shell gleaming like a gem. Poisonous orange snails crawled slowly on the walls of the glass tank. A fat white rabbit snapped into a satin top hat, snapped back again, and so on. There were also cats of various colors, a cage of noisy ravens, and a basket of funny custard colored fluff balls that were buzzing. There was also a large cage on the counter where sleek black rats were playing a jumping game with their long bare tails. Please give me tips and monthly tickets. Chapter 175 died imperceptibly. After a wizard who was buying a two-tailed newt left the counter, Ron approached the counter. Ron said to the witch behind the counter, please take a look at my mouse. Since I brought it back from Egypt, its color has been a little off. Put it on the counter, the witch said, pulling out a pair of thick black glasses from her pocket. Ron took Scabbers out of his pocket and put it next to the large cage of mice. The mice stopped jumping around and crowded around the wire cage, looking at Scabbers carefully. They seemed to be curious about this different mouse, but they might never imagine that this mouse was not a real mouse, but an animagus. Compared with the brightly colored mice in the cage, Scabbers looked particularly shabby. The witch picked up Scabbers. How old is this mouse? Ron said. I don't know, but it's very old. It used to belong to my brother. The witch looked at Scabbers carefully. Her eyes moved from Scabbers' broken left ear to its front paw, where a toe was missing, and she smacked her lips loudly. An ordinary mouse or garden mouse like this can only live for about 3 years at most. The witch said, I say, if you want something that lives longer, you might want to pick one from here. The witch pointed to the shiny black mice in the cage next to her. However, Ron was obviously unwilling to give up Scabbers, the only thing in the Weasley family that belonged to him, except Ron's new wand. Well, if you don't want to change it, you might as well try this mouse tonic. The witch didn't force it. She leaned over and took out a small red bottle from under the counter. Okay, Ron nodded. How much? Ouch. What are you doing? Suddenly, a ginger cat jumped out from the top of the highest cage and landed on Ron's head, almost knocking him down. The big cat stood up and bared its teeth at Scabbers. No, Crookshanks, no. The witch behind the counter shouted. However, Scabbers had already jumped out of her hand like a piece of soap, fell on the floor with all 4 legs in the air, and then jumped up and ran out the door. Ron hurriedly chased after it and finally found Scabbers under a waste paper box. After finding Scabbers, Ron kept mumbling on the way back to the magical creature's shop. He hated the ginger cat. However, when Ron returned to the magical creature's shop, he was horrified to find Hermione holding the ginger cat and walking out. Irina stood beside Hermione with a smile on her face, rubbing the big cat's head with her hands. As for Lin, he was holding a bag filled with canned pet owl food that he had bought for the little owl's emergency food. Hermione, you bought this damn monster? Ron said in disbelief. Hermione was all smiles, stroking the big cat in her arms, very happy. The big cat named Crookshanks seemed to enjoy the touch of the two girls, Hermione and Irina. It squinted its eyes comfortably and made a purring sound. The two girls liked Crookshanks very much, but Harry and Ron didn't think so. In their opinion, although Crookshanks had a fluffy and soft ginger-colored fur, its feet were obviously a little bit turned inward, and its expression was gloomy, and it had a weird persimmon face, as if it had hit its head against a brick wall. Hermione, this thing almost peeled off my scalp, Ron said very unhappily. Hermione held Crookshanks in her arms, and she only had eyes for this cute big cat. It didn't mean to do that, did it, Crookshanks? Then what about my scabbers? Ron pointed at the small bag that bulged out of his chest pocket. It needs to rest and relax. How can it relax with this thing next to it? Maybe I can help. Just when Ron and Hermione were about to argue, a calm voice came over. Ron and Hermione looked over and saw that it was Lin who was speaking. Irina on the side seemed to have guessed what Lin was going to do, and she looked over with a smile. Lin smiled and said, as you know, I'm an alchemist. I can make a special alchemy cage for Scabbers so that he can fully relax inside. I can also set up a defensive alchemy array for the alchemy cage to ensure that Crookshanks won't hurt Scabbers. How about that? Hearing this, Ron was both pleasantly surprised and a little surprised. He said happily, really? Harry didn't believe that there would be any good for no reason. He asked cautiously, Senior, then what do we need to pay? Lin smiled even more. Don't worry, you are Irina's friends, which means you are my friends. This alchemy cage is a gift from me to my friend. Seeing this, Irina took the initiative to dispel Harry's vigilance. Then I'll leave it to you, Lin. No problem, Lin said with a smile. So, Harry and Ron thanked Lin, and Hermione handed Ron the rat tonic that Ron had dropped earlier. Everyone strolled around Diagon Alley and planned to return to the Leaky Cauldron. On the way back to the Leaky Cauldron, Irina deliberately lagged behind everyone and walked to Lin's side. Lin, the alchemical cage you mentioned is not that simple, right? Irina leaned over and whispered in Lin's ear. Lin chuckled and said in Irina's ear, of course. In addition to the effects I just mentioned, the body functions of creatures trapped in the alchemical cage will be subtly disintegrated by the power of the alchemical array, and they will gradually lose the ability to escape and resist. However, this negative effect will only show to Ron that Banban will become more and more obedient and no longer run around. But when Peter Pettigrew recovers his body functions will be worse than that of a centenarian with one foot in the coffin. If he is locked in the alchemical cage for 10 years, he may even die in the alchemical cage due to exhaustion of heart and lung function, Lin said lightly. Hearing Lin's words, Irina couldn't help but feel a little frightened. You know, if Black hadn't broken into the castle this year, then Banban would probably have been locked up in this alchemical cage forever. With the lifespan of Wizard Peter Pettigrew, Banban, who he transformed into, could have lived for dozens or hundreds of years, but if he was locked up in the alchemical cage, he could only live for 10 years at most. The most terrifying thing is that, even if Banban died in the alchemical cage, Ron would only think that Banban's lifespan had come to an end, and would not doubt the alchemical cage itself. Ron might even be grateful to Lin En, because the alchemical cage extended Banban's lifespan by 10 years. But Peter Pettigrew, who was locked in the cage, would die silently, and no one would notice his abnormality. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.